Yeah, I couldn't go live before, it wouldn't let me. I had to completely reboot. Yeah. Hang on.
Understood as
David's job is to take patients in and out of surgery.
Patients waiting. That's why he likes Yui. Because in the last 12 months, we've answered over 90% of all calls in under 30 seconds. Yui. You insure.
Hi Diane, hi Bus, hi Gigabyte, hi Phil. Guys, I couldn't do that Freemason thing because it wouldn't let me load. It wouldn't let me go live. I was going to do Celebrity Does a Great Exposure of Freemasons, but it wouldn't let me stream. That's why I was late. I tried a couple of times and it wouldn't let me do it. So that's why I'm doing the Gosslings.
Where could reinvention take your business? Accenture, let there be change.
Okay, here we go.
Greetings, you wonderful warriors of the broken sword. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
And we are the Gosslings, a digital speakeasy of Christian authors and esoterica explorers of the strange. Here we are once again with another great episode. Welcome to the show.
It's a big one. It's a big one. Welcome. Glad you guys are here.
Yes, we're your humble hosts, and we are going to be providing you an awesome interview tonight. And I see that we already have a lot of people watching and a lot of people in the chat. A lot of our friends are already here, and yeah, this looks good, man. We're rolling.
Yeah, I want to say hi to. I'm just going to start at the bottom here.
Yep.
Tricky subject. W Gangs. Mike Fisher. What's up, Mike?
What's up, Mike?
Jesse Zabater's watching. Hey, Jesse.
Jesse, what's up?
Thanks for checking in.
We have interviewed Jesse before. We will be having her back. Check her out on the Gosslings if you have not yet. It's a great interview.
Let's see here. My
Maggie
goodness.
May.
Man, Randall Hill, M. Jeffries, Chris Caps.
What's up, Chris?
And Jay Reese is watching.
Jay Reese Bradley, author of the Brumbletide series, also has been a guest on the Goslings, and she has her own channel that everybody should check out.
Absolutely.
Along with her own books, middle grade fantasy, sort of Harry Potter-esque, very cool.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Maggie May is watching tonight, and I think I skipped one. Who did I skip? Cactus Kicker. What's up, man?
Cactus.
Cactus is in the house.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's do our toast.
Yeah.
So we can get that
absolutely
thingy up here. You guys know the drill, hopefully. Do you start or I start?
I'll start it this time.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Everybody grab your drinking vessels and follow along with us. You know the drill. Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
Amen.
Hi, Hen. Good to see ya.
Ah, yes. Coffee at 5:30 p.m. A good choice. It is not a good choice.
Not a good choice. Not well played, sir.
Not well played.
Tricky. Good to see you, mate.
Again.
And if you haven't already, take up the broken sword of your finger, strike down the subscribe button. We somewhat appreciate it.
Yes.
And if you've already done that, you can take steps to still help us by hitting the like.
Tricky, I was going to do that Freemason, the celebrity exposing the Freemason, but it wouldn't let me go live. It just wouldn't let me go live. So that's why I've gone with the Goslings now.
Or sharing the video.
Yep.
Engagement, of course, is key to feeding any algorithm, especially YouTube. So whatever you can do greatly helps. Also, lots of comments in the chat. Thank you. So great to see everybody here tonight. We also do this on Rumble. Sometimes I put videos up on Rumble. I've been pretty bad about getting them up on Rumble. Yeah.
For
But the podcast is there. You can go to Spotify and find the podcast too.
Yeah.
But really, YouTube's kind of like a
G'day,
media.
Shawnee. Welcome back.
So subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button.
Smack it. Smack that bell. Smack it like it owes you money.
Get us money.
Keep your YouTube campaign strong.
Let's see. Let's do our sponsors real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
First up, the Kothon Spartan mug.
Yeah, tricky. They just wouldn't let me do it, so I just went with the Goslings.
You should drink like a man. Really, if you're going to drink like a man.
Yes.
Drink out of a Kothon Spartan mug. Especially one handcrafted and hand-painted by Joel Cherico up at ChericoPottery.com. He handcrafts every one of these. These are replicas of what the Kothon Spartan mug was, what the Spartans drank out of, and he designed these in collaboration with the great and friend of the show, Stephen Pressfield.
Old Uncle Steve.
Yeah, so get yourself a Kothon Spartan mug.
Yes. Joel has an awesome team, anywhere from 25 to 50 people who help make his products, and he has everything from bowls to mugs and all sorts of cool stuff. We really like these because we are big Spartan fans and big Stephen Pressfield fans, but he has a wide array of pottery products that you definitely should check out at ChericoPottery.com.
That's right. That's right.
Nice Kothon.
Yeehaw, firstling of the night.
Speaking of Spartanesque, tell us about that beard.
Look at this manly pate of the source
You
of
and your lion's mane.
I am the Lion Man of Moab. It's the source of all my Samsonite powers. See, so much it even scared Leonidas here.
Whoa.
I know. Wow.
What's going on? We got spirits floating around here? What's going on? What in the world?
Egon. So, Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products made by real men for real men. You can see the products on display back here. Giordani Jovanovic is owned and operated by Mike Fisher. He is a good friend of the channel and also just
Shawnee, I haven't got an accent. It's my stream. You've got the accent.
JiordaniJovanovic.com is the website. Go there, check him out. He has everything from hair growth serum to shampoos, conditioners, body soap, lotion, everything in between. It is a wide array of products. I say this every time, but it is true. I came home early and then took a shower specifically because I knew I had to be presentable, but also because I just wanted to smell like the shampoo and the beard oil.
That's great. Well, it's appreciated on both counts.
Yes. See, yeah, you gotta, a man's gotta know his limitations. So, Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products made by real men for real men, or as I like to say, give 007 a run for his money. Awaken your inner John Wick. Be as sexy as you are deadly with JiordaniJovanovic.com hair and skincare products.
That's right. Thank you, Mike Fisher, for the generous support.
Yes.
Let's see. Well, I think we're about ready. So we interviewed Gary Wayne.
We interviewed Gary Wayne again.
I love that guy.
Yeah. I love him. Yeah, if you've never seen it, you should go back into our back catalog, and we still have the Gettysburg promo, right?
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, Nick and I made a Gettysburg promo where we were so excited about our symposium with Gary Wayne and Derek Gilbert that we did last summer that we overdubbed this whole
a scene from the movie.
Shawnee, where from America are ya?
Gettysburg.
From Gettysburg, and it was real, and that line is in there. We had so much fun making it. We're doing this a little early tonight so that we can work on making another promo for the Gosslings schedule. So
that's what we're doing post sushi. After the show.
That's right. Post sushi, we're going to be working on this thing. But until then, we interviewed Gary Wayne, author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. He has come on the show several times now, and he is a great friend of the show. He's one of the first guests that we ever interviewed. You can see his face on the T-shirt right here, where it actually says Illuminati, N-A-U-G-H-T-Y. Sometimes we're more of a wronger than a writer. And we made these shirts especially, by the way, for Gary. We sent him one, and then we have one, and then we asked him, and he gave his permission. We actually are going to, tonight, we're going to make these shirts public, available for sale on our Teespring page. Yeah. Someone had actually asked about this in the comments a while back about the T-shirts. So we got permission from Gary. These will now be available, and Nick designed them, and they are fantastic. They're funny, and we love Gary to death. And so anyways, we had interviewed him for, gosh, almost 3.5 hours. And almost like an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half of it were Patreon only.
Mhm.
It was part of it was probably the longest Patreon exclusive section I think we've ever had, if memory serves. So it's a good reason to check out our Patreon to get the full gamut of topics that we discussed. But we primarily wanted to focus on two things with Gary. We were interested in his take on Atlantis, biblically, and then mythologically, and also kind of how it applies to modern day. And then we also wanted to talk about the rise of AI with Gary and how that sort of plays into things. So even after we edited out, after Nick edited out the Patreon exclusive stuff, we were still left with upwards of a 2-hour interview with Gary. He is so incredibly generous with his time, and we cannot thank him enough for how gracious he is towards us repeatedly. But if we aired the entire...
Gary's very humble. He goes on channels. I've seen him on a channel that only had 1,500 subscribers, and he was in there doing his thing like he was talking to 100,000 people.
Interview in one go.
Very humble.
Honestly, like it would be a 3-hour live stream. And we just, I wish we had that kind of time.
Can't do it to you, can't do it to us.
Yeah, we can. So what we've decided to do is we have split the episode. We split the interview into 2 episodes. We're going to air the Atlantis portion tonight.
About an hour.
Yep, it's about an hour's worth of material. We'll still have the same breaks, you know, the intermission and the outro, Lord willing. Yeah. after last week, Nick has done some real miracles, by the way, with the computer to sort of make sure that things are, you know, where they need to be. It happens.
Who knows?
We'll get there.
Who knows?
So then, what we're going to do
promises.
though is what we're going to do is on Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time, we are going to upload the second half of our interview with Gary Wayne. So you get the first half tonight about Atlantis. And then on this Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time, we will upload the rise of AI.
Well, really, you get the first third tonight. The second third you get on Thursday.
Yeah,
If you want the third third, you got to be a patron.
Fair point. Yes, that is a good distinction. And then on Thursday, that is a pre-recorded
I got part 2 after this one, guys, because I go for 3 hours normally.
thing. Nick and I won't technically be in the studio, but we have some pre-recorded intros, intermissions, and outros, and then I will be in the live chat the whole time with you guys. So it's about as close to a real Gosslings live stream as we can get. You know, welcome to real life.
Right.
If we didn't have to have full-time jobs, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But
That's right.
we do, so we do.
Right.
Anyways, we hope you guys really enjoy it. The comments. I'm sorry, I've been blathering. So
I gotta mention one comment. Kenya Menard said that she ordered Heavenly Realms.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
So you're the one.
Yeah.
You and Tricky. You and
Thank
Tricky
you.
Subject. Dude, Tricky ordered all 3. He ordered the first 3 Heavenly Realms books.
That's
And they
awesome.
came in
Thank
the
you.
mail like earlier, last week, and he sent me pictures of his. Yeah, thank you, Tricky. And then, thank you, Keena. Is it Keena Maynard? Is that who it was?
Not Kenya. Keena.
Keena?
Keena.
Yeah.
Keena,
And by
Keena?
the way, like,
We need some, what is it, like alliteration? What is it called? Where you like actually type out how to say it?
pronunciation?
Yeah, but when you type it, it's
Articulation?
I can't remember the exact term. We're
Aristotelian?
butchering your name, Mr. Maynard, and we do apologize.
Whatever. No, you know what though?
Hey, Kelly, good to see ya.
If you ever want signed copies of our books, just message us at the Gosslings group at gmail.com. And because Amazon doesn't allow us to send out signed copies or anything like that
Not doing
through
that again.
Amazon, but we can do that to you, you know, or for you. To you. We can do that for you on the back end if you ever want. So, and I always tell people that, like, if you like the first book and you want to get any other copies, you want me to sign it or like write you a note, like we'll totally do it.
Kira OC says, Jonathan, I just started reading Imperium Falling. What an adventure.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm learning at least one new word every page.
I know.
It's true. It's full of
Kira, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Listen, I'm such a huge Stephen Pressfield fan. Like, I read Gates of Fire when I was like 17 because of this guy, by the way. And I only know about it. Stephen Pressfield is my favorite author because of Nick, and Nick only knows about it because of our eldest brother BJ, who's son, by the way, is hanging out with us over in the
We got
over off to the side. Yeah.
There he is.
So, anyways, Stephen Pressfield is also florid and poetic in his language, and so I learned the trick from him, and it was a growth experience for me. So I kind of like did the same thing. But yeah, I'm really glad you liked it. And we just talked to Brian Godawa. We just finished up our interview with Brian Godawa, who is also a Christian fiction author and very well accomplished. We're going to air. Are we airing that episode next week?
Yeah,
I believe.
On Mother's Day.
So that's right. That episode will air on Mother's Day. Another occasion where we will not technically be in studio.
It'll be pre-recorded.
It'll be pre-recorded.
I got, like 3 women that are going to need attention that day.
Nick's going to be busy.
Yeah.
But I'll be in the chat once again because my mom's dead. So, and no woman loves me. So.
Wow.
There you go,
Speaking
baby.
of nobody loving. Speaking of nobody said. Did you guys watch the crowning of the Antichrist yesterday?
Oh yeah.
We have not. I have not had a chance. It's been a sprint all weekend long to get ready for today. I didn't get a chance, but we're going to. I'm going to, and then we are going to have. From what I understand, is it okay if I tell him?
Yeah.
We're going to have Tim back at the end of the month. Tim Cohen's going to come back, and we're going to review and talk about the crowning.
Yeah. It is going to be.
Triggy, when is Tim Cohen coming on the Goslings to do that? Do you know?
Cool.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we are really excited about that. So we got some cool stuff in the works. That's like the lowest Patreon tier grants you access to the full guest list calendar.
Yep.
Which is definitely something that, like, if you're wondering who's coming back, you know,
Which I haven't put out for this month, and my apologies, but there's been a couple of changes.
oh, dude, these
So-
May and June are such tough months
Yeah.
to schedule. We got some awesome people on the books, some people that you won't expect, but you're going to be super jazzed about.
Dude, Quick 66 Hyas just said, just got the Kindle Heavenly Realms. Thanks for mentioning it. Fantastic. Hope you
Dude.
enjoy it.
That's awesome. Is it Quick 66 Haya or is it Quee? Quee 66.
Maybe it's Key 66.
Key, yeah. Quick 66 Haya. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That explains like the major uptick in sales that I saw this week. I was like, wow, where did this come from? This is awesome.
And
Yeah.
Jonathan texted me. He's like, "Have you seen an uptick in sales in your books?"
I
I
did.
was like, "No."
I win.
So-
I win.
But thanks
No,
for
just
making me
kidding.
look.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint you. Life is full of disappointments. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. So,
Princess
Yeah.
Bride. Is that right?
You were right.
Got it.
See, you know, Nick don't need no Dune references to roll. Nick rolls.
What's a dune? What's a dune?
You know what it is? It's Luciferian. But yeah, we are going to have, to answer the question, we are definitely having Tim Cohen back to discuss the coronation, and we are very happy that he said yes.
I want Tricky to remember this comment and also make it when we're talking to Tim again. You can't polish a Charles the turd, but you can roll him in glitter, and that's what happened yesterday, apparently. So well
Just
said, Tricky. Thank you.
Rolled it in the glitter.
Hi,
So,
Tricky.
I'll tell you, for anybody who is maybe like new in the chat, Tricky is arguably the funniest person like in the chat at any given moment.
It's pretty good, man.
Him and Cactus both. You get those two together, they're always fun. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, we're very grateful.
Yeah, exactly,
All right.
Triggy.
I think it's time to play part 1A
Yes, part 1A.
of the Gary Wayne episode. We hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be in the chat.
A is for Atlantis.
Ooh.
I'm more of
Ooh.
a treasure protector.
Nick Cage.
Nice.
Yeah, I got it. Treasure, National Treasure
Nice.
or National Treasure 2?
It's from the first one.
First one. All right.
Yeah.
See, I'm getting
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Getting better.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Hope you enjoy.
Gary Wayne.
Your YouTube feed is crap.
Wherever you are on your e-commerce journey, just start moving your physical store online.
Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls
Yeah, Tricky terrorizes them as well, Talia.
for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Goslings.
We kind of want to see how Atlantis ties into this Nephilim-driven techno new age that we're moving into and how it sort of overlaps.
So when you see the mythos of Atlantis, and particularly how it's been presented in our generation, but I think in past generations, it's just that they didn't have quite the understanding of the technology or that they wanted to make known to people who wouldn't be familiar with some of those types of capabilities. It is presented as a very high-tech civilization. It was the most advanced civilization of its time. It was recognized as the helm of world government in the most cultured of societies. It was the shining empire on a hill, so to speak. It was that advanced with its science and its black magic. And it sort of viewed those as the same type of knowledge. It's just that you have white magic and you have black magic, right? And they lean heavily towards the end, more towards the dark side. Again, with that sort of analogy of the force, right? The good force and the evil force. It's still all polytheism, so you have to remember that. So not only was it the helm of world government, not only was it the center of technology and culture, but it was the center of its religion sort of for the whole world. I mean, it was sort of as the dominant, highest developed sort of religion. There was other religious centers around the world with the same type of pantheon, but Atlantis was looked at as, this gigantic powerhouse that was the way things ought to be run. So we talked a little bit about Bacon earlier, and we talked a little bit about the English language that Bacon created to be the universal language for the New Atlantis, a book that he wrote, where you have this merging of the science and religion that would operate in the sixth, I think they would call it the sixth phase of Solomon, as they called it, for this new age. And that you have these 10 demigod kings in this world government that they're trying to impose on the antediluvian world, just as you have 10 kings in Daniel 7 and in Daniel 2, the 10 toes and the 10 kings that are talked about in Revelation 12, 13, and 17. That's the new Atlantis that they're trying to bring about. So they're trying to catch us up to that technology that they had. And they were, as I say, I mean, we get into like the theosophy versions with Blavatsky and the terms that they talked about Atlantis in, and the level of the magic and the black magic that they got to. It was way beyond anything that we're seeing today. And yet we're trying to catch up to that. Now you can catch up very, very quickly as this knowledge.
Hey, I was never here. Good to see you.
In shorter time frames as we go. So it can happen fairly quickly. But yeah, when they're talking about the new Atlantis, we're talking about a time when the gods walked amongst us. We are talking about a time when the bloodline, divine offspring, Poseidon had 10 sons through Clyto, a human female, to create these 10 bloodline kings. So we had the demigods walking amongst us, and we had this development of knowledge, and that's the golden age that they want to recreate.
Yeah. Helena Blavatsky, what was it? The sevenfold rays, is that right? Of the enlightened masters. I'm trying to remember exactly what that was. Help me out, Gary. I'm trying to remember.
You'll have to help me out a little bit more about the 7 rays.
Yeah, the Ascended Masters. That's
the
what.
Ascended Masters, yes.
Yes.
So the Ascended Masters are, and there's several groups that are talked about in this, but the Ascended Masters are demigods that have transcended to the next level. So we understand these as demons, and they're called the Great White Brotherhood. They're called the spirit guides. They're called all sorts of different things in that understanding and in the hierarchy that they're referring to. So these aren't humans and these aren't angels. These are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim and the Rephaim. And these are the ones that are located in Hades. Somehow, some way, they found their way to their heaven, which is Hades. They're not in the sides of the abyss, as they're talked about being locked in Ezekiel 32 for doing terrible things. These are the terrible ones. Right. So when we talk about being in communication with them, they're not providing all of the angelic technology. Otherwise, we'd be there faster, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, so I think what has happened is you had this changing of the rules to a certain degree after the flood of what you can engage upon. And I think it's to allow enough time to fulfill all the names that were written in the book of life from before creation, to sort of, everybody have their chance to make their choices and not have their names erased from the book of life. And so that I don't think the veil comes off of this until we get closer to the end time. So it's a slower ramp up, but we will see a sudden transformation of the world where we're going to walk amongst the gods again. And then they're going to get out all of those angels out of the abyss, out of the pit prison. And then all of them are going to be confined to the earth at the midpoint of the last 7 years, because that's the angelic war. And they're thrown down from heaven. So it's going to be like the new Atlantis. And these 10 kings are going to be either descendants of the giants as bloodlines, or they're going to be new Nephilim or Rephaim that are created, or they're going to be demons that are occupying the bodies of these descendants, or occupying clone bodies, or there's going to be a mix of two, because you've got, iron and clay that aren't mixing together. Iron is part of the metallic dynasty empire, starting with gold of the Rephaim bloodlines after the flood, and the clay is a mixture of men. And in that prophecy in Daniel 2:43, you have the descendants of this metallic dynasty of the last of those 10 kings. They're going to mix their seed and commingle their seed with humankind. There's a distinction here that is going on. And so we need to sort of look at how we're growing closer to the new Atlantis as we progress into the fig tree generation. But again, we ought not to get too far beyond where we are in that fig tree generation. But again, things could really start sort of heating up. But I think that new Atlantis that the polytheists dream about, which is the new age, is just different language of the same sort of term. They want to have that golden age brought back, and they want to have a realm that they win, just as they talk about in so many science fiction movies. Doctor Strange would be the best analogy, where they win a treaty to be on their own on Earth, and the rest of the universe is reigned over by the Dark Lord, which is the God of the Bible in their belief system.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about those Marvel movies, is that they have really, and the DC movies too, I guess, they've really elevated those characters to the status of demigods. And when you look at it through a Christian lens, like it's really like you're watching mythology unfold in front of you as a neo pantheon. You know?
Yes, and the metaverses, Metatron,
right,
Facebook, the multiverse. This is that angelic technology and access and world that they're trying to bring about, and all of those superheroes are based on either ancient technology or the offspring of the gods with human females.
I mean, if you had said that 30 years ago, people would roll their eyes. It's a ridiculous notion. Nobody thinks that.
Yeah, it's just
fantasy.
It's just MySpace in DC.
It's just Marvel.
You know?
Come on, it's Captain America.
Yeah.
You know, but now we're actually trying to create super.
Yeah, you're seeing their theology and what they want in those movies. They're telling you what it's going to look like.
Exactly.
So when we're going to see these things walk amongst us again, it's just a matter.
Avengers Age of Ultron. It has an artificial intelligence villain, and he opens portals as demons come through. So it is very much predictive programming.
Of how and what format, but it's going to be like the days of Noah. It may not be quite identical, but it will be like those days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, which was 600 years before the flood and 350 years after the flood, we had giants in both of those time frames, and there were significant numbers of those giants, and they controlled all of the hierarchy, and except for the terrible ones, the Rephaim ability to reproduce, because as you take that definition back to Erit or the Eritim, it has all these sort of interesting descriptions of giants, but it also says that they were childless and had a fertility issue. And so they had to intermarry with humans to continue. But those are the bloodlines that the royales, you know, AL, EL, just a transliteration for an angel or a god, the kings of God, Rex Deus, black nobility, all different names for the same type of genealogies. They are the descendants that are here today. It's just a matter, will they be presenting their own representatives for Antichrist and or these 10 kings, or will there be an addition or a supplementing of those bloodlines?
All courtesy of CRISPR technologies, you know. Have you we saw it like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's really hard to track down now, but have you ever seen, Gary, that advertisement from CRISPR technologies about wanting to the cutesy little like kid friendly, you know, cartoon ad that CRISPR technologies had where they're like showing off all their all their little like hybrid animal people, you know, where you can breathe underwater, or you can fly, you know. I mean, like it's disgusting, and they aim it towards children. You know, they infantilize adults. Like I noticed that with remember like 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, when like the Apple the little blobject multicolored Apple computer came out. It looked like something that was made by Fisher Price, you know. And it's just they're angling right for it.
They were a little bit ahead of their time, but you know, you look at most of those cartoon characters, you have the same thing going on in there. So they've been pre-planning this for a while, but they've not been able to bring it about. So they continue to be more frustrated, and they continue to double down. They're eventually going to get there, but it will be the ordained time when they get there. But all of this is just that sort of development of that transhumanism philosophy, theology, and technology, that we're just starting to see that capability becoming more real. But now they kind of drop those primitive sort of descriptions of where they're going, because of the technology that's now available, that they're taking it to a whole different level. So they're still ahead of us on it. They're just leading us in that way. But that's what they do. They lead us away from God.
Yeah. I got a Patreon question from one of our patrons, American Cars. He wanted to ask you something about Atlantis. I told him we were going to be talking to you about this.
Sure.
and he wanted to know what your thoughts were about what do they call it? The Eye of the Sahara. There's been apparently some articles that have come out recently indicating that the Eye of the Sahara, which is in Mauritania, Africa, apparently there is some speculation that this might be the location of Atlantis. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it would be, remnants of the Atlantean Empire.
Okay.
Probably outer parts of the Atlantean Empire. So when we talked about these 10 kings, they ruled not just in this island continent. That was Atlas's part of the empire.
I don't know who you're talking about, Tricky.
Empire. But they were in South America, in Brazil, into Colombia. They were in Central America. They were in England and Ireland. They were in Spain and Portugal. And they occupied Egypt and parts of North Africa as well. And so they had buildings that represented their culture and their gods and temples. And so they had that same technology because they were just branch kings of the larger kingdom.
Yeah.
And so you would expect to find Atlantean artifacts. You would expect to find Atlantean architecture. It would just be part of it. And some of it would be built to replicate the home city and the home islands. So one would expect that as they reach out with the visibility of the magnificence, so to speak, of that empire. It's advertising all throughout, just as all beast empires did. Mm-hmm. So let's say the Roman Empire is the classic example where they set up all of their architecture wherever they went.
That's so true. That's such a good analog for it too, because it's so relatable.
Yeah.
What city or place do you think was the seat of the Atlantean Empire? Like, where was Poseidon, if there was one? Where was Poseidon's seat of power?
Yeah.
Your opinion.
My opinion is I stick rather close to Plato's accounting.
Mm-hmm.
In Timaeus and Critias, and as Solon took that information down off the pillars that were inscribed in Egypt that he was shown from the priests, and that many Greek historians testify to that as being fact, that he got that information, and that's how Plato set this whole story to paper, so to speak. And he placed Atlantis as the center of Atlantis. And understanding, he also talks about them trying to conquer the whole world with their armies, right? So there's a center to this. And this was outside the Pillars of Hercules, which is understood in the ancient world as outside of Spain and Gibraltar, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean that's named accordingly. So one expects somewhere in there that they would have been located. Now, exactly where is really hard to know. And some people speculate that it slid down through some sort of outer crust shifting down to the...
We now know Atlantis is the Eye of the Sahara. We've already discovered where Atlantis is, guys. Remember? Now you see TV done it. And it was complete proof that was Atlantis.
Into Antarctica, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was an island continent as it was represented as. I mean, these people weren't stupid. Who were...
Thanks, Diane. I'll sub him as well. And if you see him go live, we'll go and gang up on him.
Writing these things down. I mean, a lot of times the elitists today say, "Oh, well, they didn't know nothing." No, they only had more advanced technology than we have.
Yeah, we can't rebuild the pyramids.
Yeah,
out of Giza.
Yeah.
You know?
So they don't know the difference between somewhere in the Mediterranean to South Antarctica to somewhere in the Atlantic or somewhere in the Indian Ocean. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how they bend these things like a pretzel, but that's polytheism for you. They interpret everything into their own sort of meaning. So I think it's somewhere out there. I think it's probably more likely it would be more closely associated with the equator, because that's where kind of all the great civilizations were on those parallels.
Okay, that's
And
interesting.
I don't know how big of a continent it was, but I expect it was of a sizable size. Maybe not as big as Australia, but somewhere that was significant and allowed a protection that people weren't able to get to that continent to invade it.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Well, and you can see how they sort of telegraph that in that TV show Lost. You know,
Yeah.
the magical island that you can only find if the powers that be allow you to find it somehow.
Yeah.
You know? It's always funny how they, especially J.J. Abrams, because Fringe was the same way too, and Dark Angel, is that the name of the TV show? It's like every one of those TV shows telegraphs these like esoteric things that you talk about. You know.
Yeah.
Do you so the megalithic structures in Peru, South America, giant on which we see, the Incas building their structures. Do you think that those megaliths that were precisely cut and fitted and quarried and taken up mountains, and we don't even know how, do you think that that is a remnant of some of that Atlantean architecture?
Yeah, it's the Incas or any of the First Nation peoples in the Americas will tell you that they did not build any of these sites.
Right.
Yeah.
That they inherited them, and they're way older than their civilizations, and they have no idea how old. And some of them will tell you that it dates back to before the flood, and these are sort of the remnants from that flood. And so when you get something like Machu Picchu, that you have this city built up in the mountains to such masonry that we can't do today, and you have this similar technology of astrological alignment, sacred geometry, ratios, comparisons and ratios to the earth, to the pyramids in Central America. This is not coincidence. This is angelic technology. And that the legends that go with it is that they were built rather quickly because it was the blocks were created with some sort of godlike technology and then moved, like they floated through the air and into place. So they were able to build it. So and in all cultures around the world, they say they inherited their cities and their culture and their knowledge from the gods. So there's a standard delusion worldwide, on every continent and every culture, that the elitists always say is just sort of this mass delusion, but have no ability to create any sort of science other than junk science to assert their theories. And it's just there to hide the real history until they're ready to show whatever that they want. So yeah, this is all angelic technology, and it's all before the flood. Even the Great Pyramid. I mean, they say it's 2350 to 2450 of Cheops or Khafra. If anything, they only did a renovation on this. So how do we know that? Again, that's a secular dating, as opposed to biblical dating that we use for 2350 to 2450, but would match up after the flood from a biblical timetable. But you have this specific angle of degree. I think it's 52.5 degree slope on the Great Pyramid, and it is depicted on the stela of Narma, or Menes. It's called both, showing this Great Pyramid in the background that's been dated to about 3000 BC.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, so that they just dream that up and just put it in, and then somehow down the road they decided to build it, but then right after that they lost all of their knowledge and their technology, and they could never redo it again, and it just got progressively worse. I mean, the nonsense of the logic that goes behind people saying that these were built by the Incas or they're built by whomever, the Egyptians, it just doesn't stand up to scrutiny, let alone the historical accounts from those peoples.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the burial mounds. here in North America.
Mhm.
You know, and we kind of talked about that. I think we've touched upon that, and then I think you talk about it in your book, and then it also comes up like in Bigfoot lore a lot of the times. You know, if we talk about Sasquatch, same kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, well, and you know, with like the serpent mounds, for example,
Yeah.
again, you get that imagery again of the serpent that's worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the gods serpentine worldwide for the most part, other kinds, but they were the more predominant ones. And again, you know, you're not getting that soil erosion that should be happening on those monuments.
That's a good
So,
point. Yeah.
and again, you have these same kinds of sacred geometry and celestial alignments that are way beyond what the elitists would tell us that the people had the technology to do. So, but again, the First Nations people say they didn't build these things.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there's two different theories, you know, in terms of how some of the technology and stuff came about in North America as opposed to Central or South America. Some it has like the extension of the Aztecs or the Quiché Maya. They migrated up and developed that type of architecture. But more and more, the evidence is suggesting that people migrated to the south to establish those civilizations. So it's almost getting to be an even debate back and forth which one it is. And the Hopi, they take their post-Diluvian history back to settlers that were the White Snake Clan from the island continent, which was Atlantis.
Interesting.
You know, I think that was maybe why Graham Hancock used them, his interview with a shaman, a Hopi shaman at the
And Tricky, they're all going to be given over to reprobate minds. It's just going to get worse and worse.
end of Fingerprints of the Gods.
Really?
As there is such a there's such a tie there. Fingerprints of the Gods is like, it's a really fun book. I'm sure like not all of it is 100% accurate, you know, 30, 40 years later. It's a great primer to the Genesis 6 conspiracy.
Yeah, it's a good read. It's
a
very good read. He's a good writer.
You two, man, if I could get you and Graham Hancock in a room together, now that would be cool.
Well, he might if we didn't talk about giants.
Yeah, fair enough.
You guys come to some different conclusions. But you look at a lot of the same historical evidence.
Mm-hmm. You might be like the Batman, Superman.
Brian, can you try me dressing again next time we get up?
And that's it. Good night.
Good night, folks. Goodbye. No, just kidding. What do you guys think, man? It's pretty good so far, huh? The chat has been like, dude, I think we might have a record of 156 people watching.
Yeah.
And man, we've had tons of new faces in the chat. We're very grateful everyone is here for Gary Wayne.
That's why I'm cracking awkward jokes. Because I don't know how to deal with that. Like,
So many people watching. My microphone's not big enough to hide behind. You know,
it's my social crutch.
it's your it's like
Not touching that one.
Fidget spinner.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Let's see. Do you want to put up maybe? Can you put up books?
Oh yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Talk and do something while I get this loaded.
So Nick and I started this channel off as honestly a writers group, an extension of a writers group.
Yeah.
Nick and I are both Christian authors, and it has since blossomed into this amazing YouTube channel, this great community with all of you guys talking to each other in the chat, and a lot of you guys are hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody has such a good time, but at its heart, Nick and I are still Christian novelists. And we write books, and so we figured out that we did this for like a year, interviewing people, and never talked about our books in any of the live streams or anything. So, anyways,
and they were like, I could write something like that if I were to talk about the books.
Right? Yeah.
So you're helping me by letting me do this.
So while Nick is pulling up part 2, we can go ahead and talk about our books. I'll talk about the Heavenly Realm series.
Go for it.
First, and then I can talk about Nick's book, which I always like to do. But I wrote a 7-novel series about the wars between the angels. It is Christian fiction, angelic war fiction. It's called Heavenly Realms. The first book in the series is Empyrean Falling. The QR code is on the screen there. It's available on Amazon. All the books are available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. We're working on the 6th audiobook right now, and I have the edits for the 7th and final novel. I just have to implement the edits and get it covered and get it produced. But it's Christian fiction. It is kind of like Braveheart meets Gettysburg, and a little bit of like Dogma and the Book of Revelations in there, and all the characters are very accessible. It's not like super fantastical, so it's very grounded, and it's faith-based, and but it's violent, and there's a lot of humanity in it, despite the fact that like humans are kind of non-existent or side characters at best in the story. It really is all about like Michael the Archangel and Gabriel the Archangel, and then their eldest brother Lucifer, who transforms into Satan. And the first book is about the war in heaven and the revolt. So check it out if you want. And if
Sounds
you already
interesting.
have checked it out and you don't hate it, leave a review on Amazon. I cannot tell you how important it is for Amazon reviews. Dude, they help us out tremendously. It's so crazy how like 5 minutes of your time, will actually really benefit somebody. I used to do that on Stephen Pressfield's books all the time, and he actually wrote me back one time. It was like, "Hey, thanks for the review." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Do you need an apprentice?" So, anyways, I've been doing that for 20 years. Nick
Hey, Chris, good to see you, mate.
Last few years, and he has an amazing book. You want to talk about the timepiece, or you want to talk about
Yeah, I want to do timepiece. Yeah, So I wrote a 8-book series, middle grade fantasy series. Middle grade meaning is for kids 8 to 12, and it's called the Travelers League series. And book 1, the timepiece, is about a 10-year-old boy who goes on an adventure with a magical timepiece through 12 different fantasy worlds, where he has to learn resilience, being on his own, and doing the right thing, even if it means breaking the rules. And just to make it edgy, the wizard that's trapped in one of the worlds is a drag queen, and no, he's not. It has nothing to do with that. But Hoops is the young boy.
Drag timepiece story hour.
Timepiece story hour. Yeah,
it's all the horrors he witnesses as he goes through all these different worlds.
No, I like J. Reese Bradley.
Kitty cat boom boom.
We write books intentionally that are not woke for kids. They have Christian themes, and they're not woke. We stand firmly against that. Kids should be able to enjoy a good fantasy story without those negative cultural influences, and a story that follows, the hero's journey and has a lesson behind it. Something meaningful, value that parents can trust their kid to read, and without, not have to worry about, language and violence and all that other stuff. For 8 to 12-year-olds, it's a fantastic story. Very much like Language in the Wardrobe, kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
So check it out.
I always compared the Travelers League series, of which timepiece is book 1, to Harry Potter meets the Boy Scouts, but homeschool Christian family set.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. It's
like
such a fun
I'm
story.
gonna let you talk about it next time. That'd be good. I will tell you this: the book is available in paperback and audiobook.
Yeah.
Used to be available in ebook. I took it out of the ebook format because I don't think kids should be reading books on screens. That's just me. And since I have control over that with my books, I would never let my kids read it off the screen. So I would not try to make a buck promoting or encouraging other people to have their kids read it off the screen. So paperback's a better experience, especially for kids. That's science.
Yes. And
trust the science. Actually, trust what I say about the science.
Trust the Lord. And trust me. So, Nick's books are middle grade fiction, and so they're great for kids. He also has Henry Half Moon, which is available under a pseudonym, but that is really young adult. And then, and if you love what we talk about here on the Gosslings, you will love his book, Henry Half Moon. It is right up your Gary Wayne alley, your Derek Gilbert alley. And then my books are really meant for a fighting age male audience. So we really like them. We're really proud of them. And also support our friend Adam Burrell. if you don't mind, if you have any Audible credits or anything like that, check out the audiobook versions. Adam poured his heart and soul into those, and he does an amazing job. He sounds like Alan Rickman. His father's an Anglican priest, and he is a stellar human being. He is a crown jewel in the Union Jack of jolly old England over there. We love Adam dearly, so he deserves our support. I always want to make sure to mention that. But
Cactus says, yet here we are, Nick, reading a fast chat from a screen. But yes, true. I'm talking kids. I'm talking about kids, not us.
Yeah. And
God forbid we model what we preach.
I want to give a quick shout out to 2 other people who are in the chat who have been friends of the channel, who have been on the channel, and they are dear friends of ours here and in real life. That's Jay Reese Bradley, who wrote the Brumble Tide series. Check out her channel. Check out her books. She also writes middle grade fiction. So she's fantastic, and she has a killer YouTube channel where she interviews a bunch of people. And then also,
100% tricky.
Gabe is a big friend of the channel. He has helped us out tremendously with some back of house stuff with our YouTube algorithms. He has been a great and charitable, merciful friend of the channel.
Friend and ally.
And we've had him on a few times as well. He's had some of us on, like. He's awesome, and he just had a new single that he made. He is a Christian musician and saxophonist. He had a new single called "Jesus Deserves More Than 4 Chords." Everybody should check that out.
You see that on our last video, right?
We did that's right. The May the 4th video where we hung out with Gabe and talked Star Wars.
Yeah, it's fun.
Gabe knows everything about everything cool when it comes to pop culture, and he's super based, and he's got a real heart for God, and we're really grateful to have Gabe in our lives. He is a real sweet friend, and he stayed at my house.
Yeah,
and it was fun. Yeah,
yeah.
Dude, he came through town. We hung out. Dude, he's killer. So, anyways, let's see. Is there anything we're forgetting?
No, I think
cool. Man, we got a bunch of new faces in here. Brad, it's good to see you. There were some other people in there as well. Sorry if I didn't get your name. The chat had already scrolled past, but we're grateful for everybody who's here. This might be a new record for amount of people watching. So, in order to not wear out our welcome, part 2 of Gary Wayne and Atlantis.
Let's do it.
Good.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You mentioned the days of Noah.
Yeah.
And Noah lived. He was born 600 years before the flood, and died 350 years after. All those things are the days of Noah.
Yeah.
The Babel incident.
Yeah.
Did that happen within that 350 years after the flood?
Yes. Yeah. Somewhere around 100 years after the flood, as you get the dating, doing the genealogy, and then it's the same accounting for that same date in the Polychronicon and Masonic history. So, yeah, he would have been around at that time, and you just have to know. Noah didn't provide him the technology to build the city or the tower.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So where did it come from? And so the Masons say it came from Hermes finding the knowledge of the antediluvians. And in their accounting, you have 2 pillars of Lamech, pillars of Enoch. There's 2 different versions of it, same story though, that had the location to the knowledge. That was buried in 9 vaults and 36,525 books stacked in 9 vaults stacked on top of each other below the Great Pyramid. And he found the one that floated because the other one was to survive an apocalypse by fire. So this one he found it could float. It would survive an apocalypse by water. And then he brings that back to Nimrod. And so Nimrod takes this knowledge and develops the knowledge. And he's accredited with being the first Grand Master of Masonry after the flood. He writes the first post-Diluvian constitution that isn't reformed until Heliopolis reforms it down the road.
Oh, that's good news, Chris.
Afterwards. Wow. And so this is the knowledge that he's building this tower with. And this is angelic technology.
Yeah.
Nobody, I don't think, really believes that Nimrod felt he could build a tower into the heavens, which would be beyond the firmament, right? And beyond that, right? You just can't build a stone structure that high. But he was trying to build it into heaven. And in other accountings, he was threatening God in his hubris speeches with his temerity that he would, if God stepped out of line, he would cross into heaven and slay God. And if God ever threatened to bring about another flood, he would do the same thing. So a stone tower or brick tower or a pyramid is not going to get you there. But in angelic technology, these are thought to be more than buildings. They're thought to be energy and portals and things like that. So in the Akkadian version, you get into their understanding, and they call it Babalu, or sometimes it's Babel, but it's the same word, but it doesn't mean confusion of languages. It means with the ILU or the EL or the AL in Babel, that's an angel or a god. And Bab is a stargate or a portal, depending on how you want to translate that. So he's going to do two things with that technology.
Will do, Tricky. Thanks, mate.
Archetypical Antichrist figure, which the Babylon religion is based from, because that is the root word is Hebrew for Babel. And Antichrist is like Antichrist because he has universal sway over all the Adamites or the Noahites at that time. Has this universal religion that he imposes on it. So he is doing one of two things. He's wanting to perhaps go into the abyss or into Hades, where the abyss prison is, and free the gods that he's starting to worship with the Enochian mysticism that he implemented on the people at Babel, because that was part of the knowledge that was provided by Hermes. Or he's actually was going to try and do what Antichrist is going to do in Daniel 8:10, where he goes into heaven and storms heaven. And I think that timing is perfect as for the time of the angelic war in Revelation 12 at the midpoint of the last 7 years, and is going to try and storm heaven. And he actually succeeds in throwing down some of the starry host and trampling on them.
So you're saying that when you mention the temple of God, you're talking about not a physical reconstruction of the temple in Jerusalem. You're talking about he actually succeeds with a Tower of Babel, like
rending the veil.
Yeah, and with a technology that you can go interdimensionally, either into the abyss or into heaven. And you wonder whether or not that technology allows them to be the ones that are going to unlock the abyss in the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm. It really makes you look at, again, just like we were talking about with superheroes, it makes you look at Stargate with a different set of eyes. That dude, they're combining interdimensional gateways with Egyptian mythology, the cosmos, and the pyramids. And
so
it's like,
let me just sort of link this back to some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier in the show. So when we talk,
Chris, that's why I didn't stream 2 days ago. We had to go to Sydney to go to the hospital so Gabe could say goodbye to him, and she managed to do it. It was very lovely. I'm glad she done it.
Talked about the world being this sort of computer-generated quantum computer projection, and that we're talking about cryptocurrency that works in tandem with this sort of technology. There's a word that they use in the occult for both crypto and interdimensional technology, and it's called geomancy. So geomancy has a few different meanings. Everybody knows it's like the divination of geographical features and looking for water and stuff like that, and or ley lines. They like to use their geomancy for the power grid that they like to search for, and that these great sites were built on ley lines, and very sort of renowned ancient worship sites. It's the art of arranging buildings on these sites. So there's an art or a technology or a science to doing that. And it's also understood as being, as a geomancer, you are like a gatekeeper who can create portals between worlds. So when you talk about this interdimensional technology that we were talking about earlier, that's using that quantum and AI computing, we need to understand that this is all part of that encrypted science, and the science of codes, the science of understanding the matrix and decoding that and then manipulating that. And that geomancy has the ability to create projections as in holograms. It's part of that same sort of art and science.
You're welcome,
talking
Chris.
about that image of the beast, it starts to sort of make some sense. And that this was also, it's also known in Taoism, the former religion before
Amen.
Taoism,
Thank you, God.
From the dragon creator gods. There's a following in there called the Feng Shui, and that is an understanding of working in the spiritual realm at the quantum level.
Yeah.
And it's a blend of intention and observation, and is working on consciousness and the vibration and the entanglement of particles as you introduce this geomancy sort of technology. And it's that they believe that the universe is a fabric in Feng Shui and not matter, but energy and information. So again, it's the same thing as the divine essence that we were talking about, and that everything vibrates with its own consciousness. And that they're able to communicate with these particles, not just receive. They're talking about communication with this divine essence. That's all part of it. And so it's the eternal knowledge of the omnipresence in there. And it is just an amazing renaissance to the days of Noah, as it was both before the flood and then again after the flood, and including Babel, as you're talking about, as to that technology and the interaction of the fallen angels and the giants. And those words, like the days of Noah, they're there specifically as written, and Jesus being the Word of God, he chose his words quite accurately.
Yeah.
And as it was written down in Greek, and it's the same exact words to describe Noah's generation. The days of Noah were. And it gives you his lifespan in Genesis 9:29. It's the same days of Noah that is talked about in 2 Peter, in terms of the crimes that were committed by the fallen angels at the time of the flood in the days of Noah, both before and after the flood. And it's the same days of Noah that's equated with the crimes and the spirits that Jesus is talking to in 1 Peter. It's very, very specific language. And the days of Noah, I mean, a day can be a year or a generation, or it could be a single day, or it could be multiple days. It's how it's sort of implied. But when you see the fig tree generation immediately before the days of Noah, and it's the exact same language to the days of Noah generation, it starts to make some sense. And we need to understand everything that was going on, both up to the time of the flood and then up to 350 years after the flood, if we want to understand the signs that Jesus provided us.
Yeah, that's one thing that has really given us pause. And talking to you and talking to others over the past couple of years is the mirroring nature of Scripture, and how like you can really find a compass heading, a bearing by looking, just like what got you into it. Looking at prophecy sent you to prehistory.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely renewed my interest in prehistory for sure. And that great term that is talked about in Ecclesiastics, that nothing is new under the sun, what was will be again, is something we really have to understand. And so when we see the beast empires that have come along after the flood, they're just trying to recreate what happened before the flood. And they're trying to recreate this Antichrist Nephilim type of character, because by inference, if nothing is new under the sun, and it's going to be like the days of Noah, then you would have had an Antichrist Nephilim figure before the flood.
Yeah.
And that Antichrist spirit has been with us all the time and has been trying to create a scenario through the beast empires where they can raise up an Antichrist figure like an Alexander, like a Nebuchadnezzar, except that that's what Michael is there to prevent. He doesn't prevent the beast empires from coming. He prevents the Antichrist from seizing power. Because the beast empire is that infrastructure with its universal religion, with its beast religion that's part of all of the beast empires, which it will be reformed with the 10 King Empire, who hands their power over to the beast.
So Atlantis, so you have Atlantis, which was wiped out, and then you have, it seems like when they were building Babel, when they were building the tower and the city, it's almost like they were trying to reestablish what they had lost in Atlantis.
Yeah.
God thwarts that, of course, but then again, see it in Revelation, they're going to try again. It's like they're trying to reestablish the system that they had. And so Babylon is I guess, a corollary to Atlantis.
Yeah.
And an Antichrist dream is to do and try and do what Lucifer tried to do, what Satan tried to do. So in Isaiah 14:12, he tried to raise his throne into heaven to be like God. Right? Antichrist is the one that's going to do that. And 2 Thessalonians 2:4 says he will claim to be God in the holy temple.
Yeah.
And he's the one who will enter into heaven along with the armies of the fallen
Wow.
ones to make war. But of course, they'll lose that and they get thrown down to the earth for the last 3.5 years.
Wow. Yeah. I can't even wrap my head around what that is going to look like. I'm sure John had trouble doing it, and he was seeing it in a vision.
That was John.
Yeah, he saw it. And all he
No, the Watchers didn't help Noah. That's Russell Crowe's version. That's not correct, though.
do is write it down to what he saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I'm so glad you called that a vision.
Why is that, Gary?
Well, because a lot of people say that's not a vision, that he actually went into heaven physically, and that also that's sort of a sign to a number of eschatological positions that is a representation of rapture. But he was in the spirit.
Right.
And he was in the Lord's Spirit when you heard the voice to say, come up here. And he saw these visions of what was going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like a dual prophecy of like Ezekiel 32 or Isaiah 14 or Ezekiel 28. There's so many of these dual prophecies where what you have is imagery of prehistory, a prophecy for the time, and then a prophecy for the future. And this is a vision like Ezekiel is in vision. This is a vision like Daniel. And Revelation is defined as a vision.
Yeah.
It's not that he physically went in. He didn't have a new body given to him. He came back and had to deliver the letters. He likely died. We have no scripture to say he transcended into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
This is a vision like the other great prophets, right? It is like that. And all he did was write down what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in vision and was taken up to the heaven in spirit. And when you get the word spirit in Greek, it's cognate to the Hebrew word ruach, right? And in the Hebrew understanding, and it's very important to understand that when you're trying to understand New Testament Greek, that they're trying to match up with words that just might line up with the ancient Hebrew, right? So that you get that understanding, even though you don't have the direct link. So when you get into like the great men, you really got to understand the understanding of Megas and Megastranes to understand how they relate to the Gibberim and the Rephaim kings in the Old Testament as being sort of the cognate sort of word. So in this case, ruach can mean a spirit of a human, spirit of an animal, spirit of an angel, spirit in the Holy Spirit, and in the spirit of prophecy. And in there, he's in the spirit of prophecy, just as Jesus is talked about towards the end of Revelation. In Revelation 19, his testimony is the spirit of prophecy. Jesus. That's the spirit that he's in, the spirit of the vision. If there's nothing physical here going on, and it's a prophecy of what he wants to take down and what's going to take place with the churches, and then what happens afterwards. So just as you see what happens with those churches, you get a reflection of what's going to happen afterwards as well as part of those allegories, just as you would have in any of those dual prophecies in the time of Isaiah, because a lot of things that happen in those dual prophecies didn't happen in the time of the prophet. That's because it's now describing some of the
bloody typos, Mary Wahlberg. I'm talking about Mark Wahlberg.
End time prophecies. So Isaiah 14 is a classic one of that. Isaiah 13 is part of the same prophecy. So it just sort of understanding that helps you to understand the rest of the book of Revelation. And so what's really interesting with if it happened in the time of the churches, you also get Revelation 2:10, where you have a tribulation for 10 days, which is 10 years. So that's more than the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And then it starts to say, well, geez, how many tribulations are there? Well, it gets stronger as we go through the fig tree generation as part of the fig tree overarching sign. Things just sort of start to make some sense.
Explain the fig tree generation a little more. Like, what is it? How do you know that we're in that generation?
It's a very good question. So Jesus uses the fig tree for a specific reason, not only to future Christians, but to the Jewish people and the lost tribes for when they awaken, because he's the Alpha Omega. He knows who he's speaking to. So the fig tree generation in the Old Testament as a fig tree, it can be an allegory when it's used in prophecy for the southern kingdom. The vine is prophetic allegory for the northern kingdom. So the fig tree generation is a generation of the people of Judah. And the fig tree is representative as well as the tree that Jesus kills before he starts to provide his end time signs that follows in the chapters afterwards. And he said that this fruit is no good anymore, and it's going to be destroyed. And it's also part of the signs of what's going to happen to Judah, Jerusalem, with the diaspora until the time of the end. And so the fig tree is a time when Judah is going to be back in, not only in the land of the covenant, but Jerusalem. And all end time prophecy centers around Jerusalem and Judah being
we are there now.
Possession of the end time, and that happens in 1967. So if we are in the fig tree generation, I would say that would be perhaps the kickoff to it.
Okay.
When they took Jerusalem in 1967. Now, in the book of Exodus, we're told the generation is 40 years. Well, that would mean we'd be into the last 7 years now if you did the math. But we're also told a generation in the book of Psalms is 70 years. And then you also have in Genesis 6:3, all life in the time of the creation of the giants for life going forward is going to be restricted to 120 years. So you're into the 70 or the 120 years for that generation. If we are indeed in the fig tree generation, but I kind of think we might be. So, and I think that would be the kickoff, because you have to have that in place for that fig tree generation. So, and then throughout that fig tree generation, you have the beginning of the sorrows or birth pangs. You have pestilence, you have famine, you have earthquakes, and you have war, and they're going to get stronger as you go through that whole generation. And so tribulations that come along with that Jesus is going to describe right after the birth pangs. He says you're going to go through affliction, as it's used in the book of Matthew. That's the Greek word thalipsis. It's the same word that's used later on in Matthew for the great tribulation after the abomination. It's the same word that is used for the tribulation of the saints that are talked about in Revelation 7. And it's the same ideology that's used for the description of the Great Tribulation in the book of Mark. I think it's in 13:19, but it doesn't say tribulation there. It says affliction for the same event that's going to happen, that's going to be not seen since the creation of the world. And it's the same word, ellipses. The translators just use different words, and it sort of confuses things.
Yes.
So you've got this increasing tribulation. You have the tribulation before those 10 years that keeps increasing, that I think we're starting to see. Then you have 3 years of the rise of Babylon, I think, where it becomes higher, and then the full weight of the Babylon persecution in the first 3.5 years. And then for everybody who's still here for the last 3.5 years, that is the Great Tribulation. And the Great Tribulation is the same. You look at that word ellipses as meaning trouble or persecution or tribulation or affliction. And it's never used with wrath. It's only used in terms of the tribulation of the saints, as opposed to the wrath of the unjust, as the wrath is reserved for in the last year. You have a cognate word that's part of the Old Testament, and it's the time of trouble that talked about in Daniel 12 when Michael rises. He rises at the midpoint of the last 7 years as a time of trouble. That is the Hebrew word sarah, and it has the exact same meanings as ellipses. It has that, you have that
Good night, Talia. God bless.
You can find it, and that's the same word that is used for the time of Jeremiah's trouble. That happens at the time of the second Exodus. That happens in the last 3.5 years. So you have tribulations that Christians are said to go through. You're going to have this increasing of tribulation through the fig tree generation. Then you have this 3 years of tribulation, then the tribulation of the saints, and then the tribulation of the rest of the whole world after the midpoint of the last 7 years. It's just sitting there to follow if you want to follow it.
If you want to follow
If you want to follow, yeah, because it's a lot to follow. It always baffled me how people could conflate tribulation that the church goes through, with wrath. Like,
yeah, and we're told in the New Testament over and over that we're going to go through tribulation as Christians, but yet the tribulation has to be connected to wrath. For some of the specific eschatological conclusions, particularly when it comes to the time of rapture. So we're said to be, and wrath isn't used to describe tribulation.
Right.
There's separate words. You have thumas and orge, which are the two words that are used like in Revelation 14, 16, and 19 for the wrath of God. And there's 4 Hebrew words that are used for wrath, and it can also be used for indignation and fury and anger and vengeance, but also used for wrath. And you get a similar flip-flopping for indignation and anger for those 2 Greek words that I talked about in Revelation 14, 16, and 19, but never with tribulation.
Interesting.
So it is.
Oh, Trick, I miss you. Good night, mate. God bless you.
Distinct event, and wrath is reserved for
I miss your
people who
comment.
don't follow God. Now that doesn't mean that some Christians won't suffer some of the tribulations of the last 3.5 years. Those who aren't taken, if the rapture, let's say even if the rapture happens just after the midpoint of the last 7 years, there's still people that are not going to be raptured, and they're going to have to earn their
stripes
way into immortality through fire. They're going to be the ones that are tested, which we're told we're going to be saved from, that time of testing, the time of trial, the time of temptation. That's the mark of the beast sign. After that, you have those people have to earn their way in through standing up against the whole system and being beheaded. They're going to be rewarded in part of their resurrection sequence at the start of the millennium. So in understanding these things, you also have to understand the resurrection sequence, which is Christ, the first fruits, and then when he comes, those who are asleep who died in him and those who are still alive. Okay, so the first fruits are those who are martyred for Jesus over the last 2,000 years, and whatever other saints that may be part of the Old Testament that might have been raised up. You would think that Moses would be part of that, right? And part of the 12 elders that are seen in the Revelation prophecy. But we're told who the first fruits are in a couple of different ways in the book of Revelation. First of all, in Revelation 6, these are the ones who have white robes who were martyred for the testimony that they provided.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're told to wait for those to come out of the Great Tribulation to be slain for the testimony that they did, the same martyrdom. And those are shown in Revelation 7, which is the tribulation of the saints that we talked about. And then you have this 144,000 that are intermixed in there. They start their Great Commission in Revelation 7, where you have the tribulation of the saints going on. They're there to wake up lost Israel and to preach the gospel to the world, just as the two prophets are. The two prophets are slain and taken to heaven as part of the first fruits after a 3.5-year commission, as described in Revelation 11. The 144,000 first fruits are described in Revelation 14 in heaven. Right? So that would be understood as being slain for the testimony and specifically called the first fruits. And then after that, you get the summary for the last 3.5 years, which is going to be the time of the Exodus for awakened Israel and Judah that have fled to the wilderness and are also around the world to get ready for being broken out of the prisons by the breaker in the year of the Lord's favor before the year of the Lord's wrath, which is the last year of the last 7 years. And that you have a resurrection that's going to happen for the people of Israel, as both of those are brought back into one staff, as Ezekiel 37 talks about in the great Exodus. But in that Ezekiel 37 passage, you have the resurrection of Israel and Judah from the dead bone, from the bones, the rising of the dead bones. And that's lines up with what's talked about in Daniel 12, where the resurrection of Israel will be done at that time when Michael rises in the last 3.5 years, some to everlasting life and some to everlasting judgment. And that is talking about the same kind of events. So once you start to line those things up and get an understanding of the resurrections, and then you also have that other resurrection that's going to be for the ones who are beheaded, that will rule with Christ. And then you have the resurrection of the dead at the end of the millennium. It just fits if you allow it to.
Whatever your claim, big or small, we're on to it.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode,
yes, you can go to our Patreon.
Absolutely.
It is.
I normally have a pre-recorded thing that we do here.
Okay, I've already loaded part 2, guys, so I'll go straight to it. There it is.
And it's after, obviously, the abyss is open because...
Oh, he's going to talk about the abyss, yeah.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I am Nick.
And we are the Gosslings. And if you are ready, then we are ready. We will go ahead and kick it off with the toast.
Let's do it.
Grab your favorite drinking vessel and join us. You want me to start?
Yeah, you start.
All right. Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
Amen.
Cheers.
Yes. Well, we got a great show for you guys today. We're really looking forward to it. But before we jump into the interview, let's get through our prerequisites.
Yeah, glad everyone's watching tonight. If you haven't yet already, we'd love your support. Take up the broken sword with your fingers. Strike down the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously.
Yes.
And give this video a like as well. Share it with your friends. And I think I'll leave it at that. I appreciate you doing that.
Yes.
I strongly suggest you do it. It is appreciated.
Helps us out greatly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
let's talk about our sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tell us about what we got up here.
These are fantastic. This is a Kothon Spartan mug.
Yes.
Handcrafted by Joel Cherico from ChericoPottery.com. He is a master potter.
Yes.
And he handcrafts each and every one of these, hand paints each and every one of these. They are amazing. They're beautiful, high quality. I haven't broken one yet. I'm really proud of myself. Yeah, and but they're great, and they're designed to be what we're assuming is the closest replica, if you will, to what the Spartans actually carried, the Kothon, which is mentioned in the historical record.
Yeah,
but there's nothing to other than what's in the historical record written down. We don't have any pictures. There were no paintings, drawings, anything like that. So he made these by collaborating with Stephen Pressfield.
The great Stephen Pressfield.
Who is somewhat of a subject matter expert on the Spartans.
Absolutely.
And this was what they came up with.
Yeah.
Check it out at ChericoPottery.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you would also like to look as cool as you feel with your Kothon Spartan mug, then you can't go wrong with Giordani Jovanovic hair care products. Made by real men, for real men, or as I like to say, be as sexy as you are deadly. Give 007 a run for his money. Right. What was the one that you came up with?
Oh, give your better half a reason to doubt that.
That's right. Awaken your inner John Wick.
That's right.
With Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products for men. Everything from beard balm to shampoos, lotions, body soaps, everything you could want, even hair growth serum.
Yeah.
It's all there. And Mike Fisher is the owner and proprietor of Giordani Jovanovic hair and skincare products. And he's a great guy. He's a big supporter of the show.
Yeah.
He's a really good friend. We love Mike. And small family-owned Christian.
Chris, John from the Gosslings pops in here every now and then and says hello.
Company. They do everything themselves. It's really impressive. JordaniJovanovic.com is the place to go. Check them out. Get some stuff squared away for you or for the man in your life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, very good. We appreciate Mike's support of the channel.
Yeah.
And everyone watching tonight, thank you guys. We're really glad that you're here, and we think you're absolutely going to love tonight's guest. We've got it all teed up, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Kick it off, baby.
Let's do it. Let's roll.
Australia, it's time to feel the love. Love Island UK is back, and
Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
A dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
You seem to always have your head so clearly wrapped around the order of events. And I struggle, as much as I study and read, I struggle to really put these things in the right order.
Well, there's one really easy way of doing it, but we don't for some reason. So if you just put it around the chronology that Jesus provided in Matthew 24 and Mark 13, and then add in Luke 17 and 21 details, the language is there to fit the Luke one in, and it just adds a few more details. It's really, really easy to get the culmination at the middle. So you get the first 3.5 years, you get the second.
It's glaring up, guys. You've got to fix the glare.
Two different tribulations that are talked about. And then, if you don't let people say to you that it's just topical groupings that he put it in, it's not chronological, and say, well, if that were the case, you would think that the translation in the original Greek would reflect that, would say something about that, and there wouldn't be language to not support that. So what we have to do when you're trying to do preconceived conclusions, you have to ignore inconvenient passages, and you have to reinvent what Jesus said. So the word then, that's
Chris, you fit right here from the beginning, mate.
used in Mark and in Matthew is the Greek word tota, and it means then, at that time. It means specifically that. It's not a word that's been inserted. It's an actual Greek word. And when Jesus says, then this happens, take him at his word, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's in the right order. And then just place everything around what Jesus said and not vice versa. But people want to redefine what Jesus said based on what the prophets said. The prophets add more information and context to what Jesus said, whether it's Old Testament or New Testament, not vice versa.
Right. Yeah.
So really I guess the best framework in the Bible for all of this is Matthew 24. Start there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the things I cover off. I'm doing 2 different seminars in Atlanta at the Sacred Word Conference. And one of them is on some of the terminology. So I'm going to be dealing with things like wormwood. I'm going to be dealing with the spirit and vision aspects. I'm going to be dealing with the scorpion beings and thumus and tribulation and those things. But the other one, I'm going to lay down some chronology for people of end time revelation. And if you just sort of line it up, it just makes a lot of sense. Everything from about Revelation 6 to Revelation 14:7 lines up perfectly to Matthew 24, 7 to 20. 20 ends the end of the abomination and starts the last 3.5 years, because you get the summary in the last half of Revelation 14 of the last 3.5 years. So you have the destruction of Babylon. It gives you get the mark, the destruction of Babylon and Armageddon. You get the exact order, and then you get the details that are going to follow that up with in Revelation 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. It just fits. And then once you have that chronology of Jesus, you can take any prophecy anywhere and slide it in. You will not have contradictions.
Nice.
Well, let me ask you a question. I kind of want to transition to AI and the rise of AI, but I know it's related to all of this, especially the events in Revelation. There's this idea about singularity, where it's the kind of the point of no return in which AI basically runs away from us, right? It outpaces us. We can't catch
Pandora's box is
point of no
open,
return, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think how long? Well, first of all, how long do you think it'll be till we reach that point? And do you think that's
I
what
can't
we're
stop the
seeing
glare, guys.
in Revelation 13 with the rise of the mark? Is that kind of the point?
Yes. Yeah, that's part of that whole nexus of technologies that will be coming together. So, but we'll see that come together beforehand, but continue to develop until it hits that ultimate pinnacle. And so
Yeah, we are indeed.
we're going to see, just as people point to Antichrist all the time and are incorrect, and there will be multiple Antichrists that will come along. You'll see multiple beast systems that people are going to point to, and all it's going to do is discredit Christians, so that people won't listen. And it's not that they're not directionally correct, but you can't get ahead of end time chronology, because events have to happen first before that happens. But this thing, it all has to be developing and working in that direction. So we're going to see birth pangs of those systems. We're going to see birth pangs of those antichrists. If you understand that getting stronger, everything makes sense. And then you won't conflate the wrath bowls with the trumpets with the seals, because you get 25% destruction in the seals, then 33%, then 100%, except that Jesus would step in at the time of the wrath bowls. And that means before the last 7 years, we're going to see wars that look like Armageddon's coming. We're going to see pestilence that looks like Armageddon. We're going to see all of these things. They're just, And it's going to seem like it, but it's going to get stronger. So much so, even the people running the world in Revelation,
It's only 3 weeks old, guys.
At the end with 25% destruction, they're going to hide in the earth saying it's the day of the Lord.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's not. There's worse to come. We haven't even seen the 3 woes yet, or the 7 thunders.
Yeah.
Then the 3 woes are the last 3 trumpets, right? Isn't that right? Or no?
Well, yeah, kind of. So you get the first woe in Revelation 9, and that's the scorpion beings that are coming out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Sounds fun.
And then you get the second woe, and it's after, obviously, the abyss is open, because the one who comes up out of the abyss kills the 2 witnesses at the midpoint of the last 7 years. And then you get 2 possible, and you could say they're probably maybe the same thing for the third woe, because you don't get something that explicitly says the third woe. But what you get is the word woe, just like alas goes back to the same word as woe does. So you get this woe that comes with the war in heaven when the devil and the fallen angels are.
Chris, the problem with the Goslings, I love the Goslings, but they don't title their videos very well. You don't know what it's really about. So, yeah. So you said they got a good one on, hang on.
Down to the earth, and you get whoa, whoa, whoa.
They got one with interactions with angels. Can you post me the link to that, please, Chris?
Or alas, 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 depending on which translation that you're reading, for the destruction of Babylon just after the midpoint. So, and that could be conflated as all of that third woe, but we're not specifically told which one. And all of the mysteries of God are going to be fulfilled within the days of the 7th trumpet. So
when was that?
Yeah, within that period, you're going to get those woes, and that's going that trumpet is going to overlap a little bit into the last half of the last 7 years. So probably maybe even a few months or so, because it's going to be a while before you have the abomination with the crowning of Antichrist, the destruction of Babylon, and then the implementation of the mark. May happen within a few months, maybe, whatever an hour might be sort of explained at in that time, but that hour is the same language as the hour of trial and the hour of Babylon's destruction. So again, they're all sort of connected with the same language. And so I would say just slightly into the second half is when rapture would happen, because that's
hey, John, good to see you, mate. We're just talking about you.
That's part of the mystery, which is the rapture. So it's going to be fulfilled by then. At least I think that's how I connect everything. Some people might take that a little bit closer to the end of the last 7 years, but before the year of the wrath bowls. And you might get there with the thief of the night allegory, which comes up with Jesus coming back as a thief of the night in Revelation 16, right, at the time of Armageddon. Trouble is that, as the book of Luke talks about, it's the days of the Son of Man, multiple days. Now, again, you could translate that as day or days, but when you match that up with Hosea 9:7,
John, looking forward to your next interview with Tim Cohen. Really looking forward to that. Tricky was telling us about it.
You get the visitation
tomorrow, isn't it?
Of the Lord. The day of the visitations, multiple visitations. He's coming back when he comes back for rapture, for second Exodus, and then for Armageddon at 3 different points. And I think all after the midpoint of the last 7 years.
You're going to have to educate Nick, and then Nick's going to have to make me a flow chart.
Okay, so he's a mid to post stripper, is that right?
I'll make a nice graphic, infographic.
Can you put it in, like, can you use the G.I. Joes? Is what else? That's what I'm going to do. That was awesome, Gary.
That was great, yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever really gone into that kind of
Looking forward to it, John. I'll probably stream that tomorrow.
detail about that. Well, that's cool. So we were talking about it in Patreon only segment about AI and sort of how it plays into the end times and the beast system. And we had talked a little bit about like the Terminator aspect of things.
Wow, Chris, that looks really good. So we're going to do a few Goslings this week, guys.
Could you, for our public interview, could you sort of reiterate what we were talking about just with AI and the government sponsoring and pushing of AI, and how this seems to be maybe an oinkotarian demonic entity?
Yeah, so this AI thing is, we've got a pause that's being requested by some. Elon Musk would be one of those, because that this thing's getting out of control. That it has the ability to supersede its programming, write its own language, walk around the programming, and that this has an existential threat to us. is really how they're putting it to us, because it seems to be very anti-human.
Yeah, it's mad, and it hasn't even gotten any legs yet.
So when we start to look at this sort of technology, and that Elon Musk, who is heavily involved with this, and he's dead set against what the CEO of Google is wanting to do with it. And Elon may even launch a new company that is going to try and sort of offset and try and use this with proper parameters, but I still think it's still going to the same end, so I'm not sure whether that's going to do much good. But he described AI as summoning the demon.
That's right. Yeah. Very specific choice of words, right, Gary?
Very specific choice. And then when we match that up with it, that they're getting help from these spirit guides, or great white masters, or celestial mafia, or aliens, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
To develop this, and that you have a concern that these are demons and fallen angels, that they're getting this getting the technology to develop this, and that it's going to be used for those sorts of purposes, and that these disembodied spirits of the Nephilim and the Rephaim, because they have counterfeit spirits, and their spirits aren't permitted to sleep like humans, and they either are going to the abyss, they're going to roam the earth looking for a place of rest to possess, or somehow in their belief system they get to their heaven, which is Hades or Sheol in the earth, probably in another dimension through a portal. That's what all their rituals are all about.
Yeah.
So to interact as a disembodied spirit, as opposed to a fallen angel that can make its own body, make its own oikotarian. An oikotarian is a dwelling place for a spirit, as it's defined in Greek, and that shows up.
John, that's why you're going to call it oikotarian. I was wondering where you were going with that.
In habitation, the word habitation in Jude 1:6, where the angels left their habitation, or their oikotarian, their dwelling place for their heavenly spirit. And in 2 Corinthians 5:2, in the house in heaven, the dwelling place for the spirit is like the house, right? And so you need to house the spirit, whether it's in the spirit world or the physical world. And the oikotarian is, excuse me, I got an itch in my eye. This keeps coming back today for some reason. But anyways, you have an oikotarian, that's the soul and the body that the spirit dwells in to interact in the physical world. Now, we are also talking about the image of the beast as a metaphor, understanding that these were talking idols in the Old Testament, and that the image of the beast is going to be able to speak and will probably house demons, and that these talking idols were thought to house familiar spirits, or shades, or demons, or Rapha spirits, or daemons and demons as we know them from the New Testament. And that technology is thought to be able to house these creations as well, in some of the algorithms and systems and hardware, that it creates an oikotarian within that technology, that they're going to be sort of this life that is going to be running these AI. So it may not be actually the AI itself that becomes super dangerous, but it's what the demonic spirits living in them will become to do so. So it's very interesting with with the language that they're using today, that they are talking about the dangers, and that there's a demonic sort of element to this that I think they're grappling with to explain.
Yeah.
I think the adepts who are funding them could explain it to them, but they're just going to march on and develop this no matter what. But as I think I joked about in the first part of the show, that they should be forced to watch a Terminator movie every day. So they get
Right.
This is going to go wrong in a big way.
Yeah. Or maybe like the rebooted Battlestar Galactica, where like, oh, we made the Cylons. Oh, now we're on the run from the Cylons. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Which is actually like kind of interesting in that show, in that the last episode of that show, I think, revealed that they weren't an advanced Earth civilization. They were like an alternate human civilization, and it almost had like this weird Atlantean.
I'm going to look up Battlestar Galactica and see what streams it, because they got all that tech. I really believe they've got that technology already. I believe them whistleblowers on Super Soldier Talk. I believe them. I think it's true, because they had the Philadelphia experiment in 42. So imagine how advanced they are now. I think it's all true.
Overlap. Like maybe, which had me thinking while you were talking, like, I wonder if this will sound maybe a little cheesy, but it had me thinking, like, I wonder if Atlantis tapped into AI, or I mean, maybe they didn't have to, but all that stuff kind of, it all sort of congeals together into this thematic sphere.
It does. It's all about the past, and that's exactly what Battlestar Galactica was. Nothing is new under the sun. Everything keeps repeating. Similar sort of ideology. A couple of things that I didn't mention in earlier on in the show is that they actually call in this technology, they have buzzwords and things for them that may not be the specific scientific name, but they actually call daemons things in their technology. They call it actually daemons actually manage their systems. And that they also call demons or daemons as intelligent programs.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Wow.
Who calls them that?
Computer scientists.
Yeah, this is just some of their lingo that they're using as they describe these different algorithms that they're creating.
I got a real basic example for you. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's been around forever. If you send, at least through Yahoo, if you send an email to a junk email address, you will get a mailer demon. It like literally reply at mailer demon, and it says your email could not be delivered. And it's so like low.
No way.
It's a weird choice of words.
Wow.
And then they also talk the demon as being like an archetypical program. Like from the beginning, as you take that word back in Greek.
Archetypal,
yeah. And it's like an immortal being is the reference to this archetypical demon algorithm or program, and that it's like an immortal, and it operates in both the physical nature of the hardware that's out there, and you just can't sort of make this up in terms of the language that they use. So
it's so grossly deliberate.
Well, and if you understand that science honors their gods and their belief system and names everything after their gods and their belief systems, it starts to make some sense.
Yeah. And there is this, it's so funny, there's this false dichotomy between religion and science, but as you say, science obviously seems to have its own religion. It's just not Christianity. That's really what it is.
Yeah, it's polytheism. And it goes back to the beginning of the Adamites. And in that, when Adam learns all of this knowledge in Eden, and he had to learn a lot of knowledge, he was running a piece of property from the Nile to the Euphrates, and it had orchards, a lot of orchards, a lot of ranches, a lot of crops, all by himself, until Eve was created for him. He would have to understand astronomy, weather pattern. I mean, technologies that our modern farmers have to have, and there's just him. And so it's a lot to learn. So this knowledge was passed on to Cain, who passes it on to his son Enoch. And Enoch takes it and puts it into the 7 sacred sciences, which we understand as the 7 liberal arts. And the first 3 sciences make up philosophy, which is the arbitrator that guides, or the theology that guides all of the 7 sciences. That's philosophy right. Being the love of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. It's the theology is, their theology is philosophy, the love of Sophia, the mother goddess, and it's right at the pinnacle of polytheism in terms of their belief system. And that it had 4 goals when they designed Enochian mysticism and the 7 sacred sciences. Mysticism came out of the 7 sacred sciences. I call it Enochian mysticism because he created all the rituals for it to keep it from the mundane, the average humans, the people who didn't deserve the knowledge, and to develop this knowledge that eventually merged with the gods. Those 4 things, right from the beginning, were the goals. See how that matches up with the 7 liberal arts being taught in university today. First thing is to lead people away from God. So anything they teach, as long as it leads you away from God, like evolution, they don't believe in evolution, but it leads people away from God, they will teach. The second thing is to degrade God, to slander God, and they try and dismiss him, make him irrelevant. Then the other thing is they don't give God credit for anything. So they don't give him credit for making anything. Those are the first 3 things of the original goals, according to the Masons, of the 7 sacred sciences that were formed into Enochian mysticism. The 4th thing is to honor their pantheon of gods, whether it's in the buildings or naming things after. Everything that we see in modern education and science is the polytheist system of old that was not secular. It's polytheist, and that's why anything but God is allowed in the discussion.
Yes, right.
Yeah, if you're liking this, let us know what you think in the chat. Tell us what you're getting out of this interview. Really glad you're still here. We've got more to come. So what you've heard, you're going to hear just that much. You're going to hear all new content here in just a couple seconds. We're going to play the other half of the interview. But before we do that, real quick, we wanted to mention how you can support the channel and help us grow and get more guests and bring you more great interviews like this. Head on over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. Or you can scan the code.
Yeah, scan the QR code. It's a cool little feature. The Patreon is this awesome thing. We are building an amazing community of super cool, friendly, fun people who are all kind of into the same sorts of things. And it's really fun because, like, no one agrees on everything, but, like, no one ever fights about anything.
Yeah, no one ever fights about it.
Not even the Rapture.
Oddly enough.
That's like us. We all don't agree on the same things, but no one gets upset about it.
So if you love talking about the Rapture but not fighting about it, head on over to patreon.com/the Gosslings.
It's a lot of fun though. We have multiple tiers for you. You know, so if, like, you just want to know what our guest list is for the Gosslings as far as interviews go for the foreseeable future, then we have that tier. But if you want to, say, have your product sponsored, you know, if you want to, you know, have us mention your product, if you want, you know, a free t-shirt, if you want free swag, if you want discounts on merchandise, if you want access to behind the scenes content, if you want digital downloads,
and if you are really enjoying this particular episode.
John, you guys do great considering you both do full-time employment. You do a brilliant job.
There is some exclusive content that we did just with this guest, just for our Patreon members, and you'd be able to hear that too. And typically, that's the stuff we're not allowed to say on YouTube.
So if you find this interview, maybe a little too YouTube friendly or prosaic, you're like, man, I wish they talked about that naughty stuff. Guess what? We probably have.
Get down and dirty over Patreon.
We do, yeah. And
Got to
Patreon
sign
members
up to
usually
it.
get access to that
Tricky's
stuff
on
before
Patreon.
everybody else
Absolutely
does because
they
it's
do.
unedited.
Like a week in advance.
Yeah, and it's usually a good chunk of the interview. It's very rare.
Usually, sometimes the whole thing. Everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Exclusive content and everything.
Yeah.
A week in advance. Sign up at patreon.com.
And a lot of times it ends up being like half an hour's worth of material.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's worth it. Go to Patreon, go to patreon.com/the Gosslings, scan the QR code, check it out. Ask some people in the chat,
Yeah.
Like, dude, they're almost always in here talking.
Yeah.
They're super
We got
cool.
some patrons watching right now.
Yeah.
Ask them what they think.
Yeah.
Ask them what they get out of it.
Yeah. And if they tell you that it sucks, come let us know.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm going to mail them something.
That's right. You get an exclusive gift.
So,
where's Shelby?
Yeah, where's Shelby? Hey, tell us about your book real quick.
Oh, yeah. So this channel actually got started because Nick and I are a couple of writers.
Yeah.
We're a couple of Christian authors. We write fiction. I wrote the Heavenly Realms series, which you're seeing the QR code of the book in the series up on your screen right now. It's called Empyrean Falling, and it is about angelic warfare. It is basically, I think, Nick, you described it best as it's like 300 meets the Book of Revelation.
Yeah, Gettysburg, 300, and the Book of Revelation, all in one
blended
story
together into one meat
Yeah.
pie.
It is epic. It is literally the definition of the word epic. It reads like that. The story's built out like that.
And it's a lot of fun. And there's a 7-novel series. It's available, just like all these that we're about to tell you. They're all available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And some of Nick's that we're going to talk about, I think, maybe available in hardcover.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No.
No?
I'll tell you about mine. So
Okay.
Henry Half Moon. This is the book that I like to mention. It's about a young NYU student who doesn't believe in God, but he's called by gods he doesn't even believe in to cross over into the other dimension and battle a new invasion of a new kind of species of demon called the Algalim. That are trying to restore the Anunnaki and bring about.
So if you're into like all the cool, weird, esoteric stuff that
supernatural
we talk about,
stuff, yeah.
If you're like,
That sounds cool.
Wayne, I love Derek Gilbert, like I love Ryan Pitterson, I love all these cool people that like talk about all this weird stuff. You're gonna like Henry Half Moon.
Yeah, and ultimately it's a faith journey, even though it weaves in
I
Greek
haven't heard from Ryan Peterson for a couple of months.
mythology, the occult, ancient Sumerian.
Yeah.
It's mixing all of those things in together. But Henry actually goes through a faith journey, and if you're a believer in Christ, I think you're really gonna like how it ends.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So, well, that's all we got. I hope you guys enjoy those books. If you get one, let us know.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get back to the interview here.
Oh,
and we'll catch
right.
up with you guys on the back.
I thought you was going.
Enjoy.
See you soon.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before. Forgive me if I've mentioned it in one of our interviews, but when I worked at a corporate office, we would have these 15-minute morning meetings, morning huddles, and it was an office, buildings, mostly like 70% women, and then all the other dudes in the office. There weren't a lot of like bros in the office, it was a lot of what you call blue team, a lot of people who vote D every time they go into the voting booth, and there were some cool people there, but whatever. But in these huddles, everybody had to lead a huddle. You took a turn, you signed up, and at the end of the huddle, everybody had to give a quote, a motivational quote for the day. Well, you could quote anything. Boy, howdy, you quote the New Testament?
That's not permitted. Yeah.
Nope.
Or anything that might be associated with it, like intelligent design. Anything associated with it's
Right.
not permitted.
I
Just
thought about
doesn't.
like signing up for every one and then just reading the screw tape letters, one like paragraph at a time.
And yet science is supposed to be about following the evidence, not leaving out the inconvenient evidence or hearing arguments from all sides, except for they have a preconceived conclusion. And it's not science, it's junk science, and
It's
it's
a cult.
all and it's all controlled by high-level, powerful, rich polytheists, adepts.
Yeah.
And so if you don't do research that is designed to produce the outcome that they want, you don't get funded.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Or you're not allowed to become a professor or whatever. I have one quote here. There's because and I just pulled it out. So we can sign another name to some of this demonology stuff. So Marco Renesi of the Institute of Ethics and Energy of Technologies says that computer sciences are all applied demonology.
Wow.
Wow.
Writing it down.
Yeah, that is
Can
wow.
you read it again, Gary? Computer sciences.
Computer sciences are all applied demonology.
Wow.
Applied demonology.
Wow.
Yeah, and then link that up with, you know, the other words that I connected, like the algorithms and stuff back to daemons and things like that, and archetypical immortal programs.
Wow.
Yeah, there really is a ghost in the machine, as they say. You know.
Yeah,
Talk
there
about
actually
that.
is.
Talk about the pursuit of AI in the insane quest to live forever, because I think it's related to that.
Sure it is. It's to be like God. Same promise in Eden. Knowledge and immortality.
Yeah, because if you never die, you never have to face God's judgment.
Yes. Wow. That's what they were hoping anyways.
Right. Yeah. Good luck. You're going to need it.
So, and, you know, with Adam and Eve, I mean, they got the knowledge of good and evil from the tree of gnosis, as I like to call it in polytheism. Trouble is they didn't any longer have access to the tree of life. So they got this additional knowledge, but it wasn't unlimited knowledge. And they lost, and they traded their immortality because they couldn't feed from the tree of life. And that's why two cherubins were put up to protect the gate so that nobody was going to be allowed back in there. So it's about being like God. God is two things in polytheism. I think he's much more, but this is their polytheist definition. One is a God has immortality. So you want to vibrate into being a God, then you have to have immortality. And the second thing is you have to have unlimited knowledge.
Yeah.
And they have to provide that access. So that's why that nexus point with the mark of the beast is designed to deliver that.
Yep. Yeah. Sure.
So the mark of the beast will enable people to presumably have unlimited knowledge, and will allow them to somehow cheat biological death.
Oh yeah, I guess so, right? Because you're tapping into AI, and it's probably implanted into an interface that connects to your brain, and so
but the real truth is that they won't have access to unlimited knowledge. It will be limited knowledge, and even more limited knowledge as the true celestial mafia wants to limit it to you because they need servants. Even they want you to worship them like days of old.
Yeah, there's a great deception that goes on with these spirit beings. I was reading, I think we've talked about it before, but I was reading this chronicle that a friend sent me on, I think it was on Telegram. Maybe it was like a Reddit thread. I don't know. I'm old. And so, like, it's all the same to me at this point. But there was this guy who had compiled all of these anecdotes of people who had taken DMT or heavy psychedelics, and they had encountered the machine elves, they had encountered these spirit beings, and all of these spirit beings on the other side portrayed themselves as being benevolent, educational entities, spirit guides, all this stuff. But what was weird is that what all the creepy thing about the story, and what made it relevant, I think, or prescient, is whenever anybody would push back on any of these beings and like question their authority or question them, they would immediately become vicious, hatefully vicious. And then every now and then another being would come into the scene, and the first being would flee, or they would like argue amongst themselves over authority over the person interacting with.
Sure. Now think about this.
Yeah.
So if the mark of the beast has the ability to cause all who refuse to take it to die, it could do that with that connection even more efficiently for those who say, hey, I don't like what I bought into.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Yeah, you have buyer's remorse on that one. They flip the switch on you.
Yeah. And that mark of the beast system, because it's going to be like this sort of really advanced cloud everybody's sort of connected into, it's going to control what you're allowed to have access or not to have access to, what you're permitted to.
Yeah. Gary, have you seen that video? It's been out for several months now, and I can't trace the origin point of it, where the guy is in an interview on a soundstage, and he's talking about how at CERN they have started to communicate with beings on the other side that are talking back to them. I can't remember. Maybe we discussed this in our last interview when we talked about CERN.
What's the name of the show?
I can't find any information on it. It's this random clip that you'll see on Instagram sometimes, where it's this guy who apparently works at CERN, and he's been talking about how like they've tapped into something where they are communicating with entities on the other side. And those entities.
Well, they are. I mean, when you get it's common knowledge that, not common knowledge, but there's information out there that if you are a high level adept, you could communicate with these beings on the other side. Or so when we're talking about scientists communicating with them, they're either creating a technology that permits that, or they're in contact with a necromancer that can connect them, right? That just shows you that they're in behind the scenes on the helping of it. So we have an analogy in World War II of what the end time will look like. With Nazi Germany. So you have this Reichschurch that he forms that is the Volkisch overlay onto theosophy, so they call it Ariosophy. And that they believe they descended from giants, and they're trying to backwards engineer themselves to create giants, and that they were going forward with, specific sort of pedigreeing of intermarriage to, produce nothing but blonde hair, blue eye Atlanteans or Thulians, which is another Norse mythology for an island like Atlantis, and that this whole Nazi regime was created by Rosicrucian social masonry to create National Socialism, a left-wing organization to get under control communism, which they originally set off to eliminate a rival, more pure bloodline in Russia. And of course, they also launched that same virus into China to get rid of the Xi bloodline and another pure strain that was a rival to the Western Europeans. So you have these organizations like the Thule Society, the Gem Orden organization, and many other Masonic groups that are combining with the religion of Theosophy to put this Aryan religion together that they call Ariosophy. So you have secret societies forming this National Socialism progressive state, because that was the Eastern version of progressivism, and that they had an archetypical Antichrist figure, and one of Nostradamus's 3 Antichrist figures, who is wanting to have a Third Reich, or 1,000-year reign, or a false millennium. And you have this genocide starting with the people of Judah. You have this complete sort of analogy of what the end time will look like. Then you combine that with rapid advancement of technology. Right? That is otherwise unexplainable. And they develop things like the Tiger and Panzer tank, which is the frame that still is used to today. Revolutionized tank warfare. They just couldn't produce enough of them fast enough. They produced the jet engine, the rocket engine. They produced the single-wing plane. There's some sort of maybe time thing, this bell-shaped thing that nobody really knows what it was. And it's the basis for a lot of our modern science, technology, and rocketry and other things, even to this day, that was taken across on Operation Paperclip. And that this happened in a very short period of time when they had no money. They were broke.
Post Weimar Republic.
Yeah.
They became the most powerful army with the most advanced military strategy, introducing blitzkrieg that the world had never seen. That comes out of nowhere. So they asked them, how did this happen? And they told them that because now if you understand that they had this Gnostic type of religion, this polytheist religion with these secret societies, and the leaders were adepts of these secret societies and mystical religions, they talked to the invisible ones, the great white brotherhood, the same beings that we're talking about who passed on this information to develop it for them. And we're seeing that rapid transformation today as we head towards National Socialism on a globalist scale.
Easy, Gary. It's democratic socialism. National socialism, we just call that the Nazis. We don't, those are the bad guys.
Except that they do all the same things that the National Socialists did before they went into genocide, as all of those social places did, just as the National Socialists in Germany got elected and then eliminated democracy.
And guys, Obamacare was Hitler's health plan. It just ends up that the state is the only provider of insurance for health. Obama's health care was Hitler's health plan.
That's into a one-party system. Yeah, they're not slaying us en masse yet, but they will. And they created subhumans. I mean, just look at the left-wing philosophy and how many people are no longer human. They are subhuman. They're not part of the supremacy theology that they have and don't deserve to be part of the New World Order.
You're the neo-proletariat.
Yeah. And so we have that in a stronger way. As what happened in World War II.
And Chris, Gary explains it really well, doesn't he?
This ideology that nothing new is under the sun, and it keeps getting closer and closer as we get there. So I think we should be very much aware of this whole connection back to prehistory and all of the imagery that they are making us swim into. They're just preparing us for the next levels that they're going to be going to. I mean, who can argue today that our media doesn't represent the media in Nazi Germany or in communist Russia? You have the oligopolies that have come forward and out of the closets as true globalists and true socialists. They're not for free enterprise. They're for monopolies and oligopolies that are owned and run by the rich, by the royals, by the elite. They don't have the average person's best interest in mind. This is a system that controls the complete education system. It's a system that controls the complete science. It controls
the media.
It controls entertainment. It controls everything.
We're there.
Oh yeah, Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. Oceania has always been friends with Eurasia. It's the propaganda is all right there. That's why this is important. That's why this matters. Hey, this is like what, 30, 40 years worth of work, Gary?
Yeah, about 30 years.
30?
30 years. A lot of it was just, the first, let's say, 15 years or so was just doing the research in the Bible.
I still haven't read all of Genesis 6. In fact, I haven't read many chapters at all. It's so deep, very fascinating.
To understand prophecy. And then I ran across these giant things and had to sort of figure that out, because I'm going, I don't know whether I want to deal with that or not, but, but you have to, because
you have to. Yeah, that's true.
And then, but what really took me down the rabbit hole was when I decided to add in my knowledge of history and mythology, and then that led me to say, well, to have people sort of understand the veracity to what polytheist cultures thought, you have to understand the religion. When I dug into that, I understood that the secret societies came out of the mystery schools, which were started by the mystical religion to educate the elite, And then they set up these secret societies, and that's where Masonry takes their beginnings is to before the flood with the creation of the mystery schools. And just like you get the beta houses and alpha houses and stuff on universities today, it's the same things, or the skull and bones. So it's the same sort of ideology. So yeah, so when I went down that secret society rabbit hole, it was for a decade because I didn't know anything about it. And so and I also had to take time to learn about the other religions so I could understand how that sort of intermixed. So yeah, there's a lot of research in there.
And you can't unsee it, you know?
No, you can't. But it's better to see it. Once you deal with that cognitive dissonance, and we all go through it at different stages and different levels, it doesn't change things, but you understand things.
Yeah.
But also it comes with being frustrated watching a world gone mad.
Yeah, that's true. It does. Yeah, it increases your stress levels when you can see the code in the matrix, you know. But at the same time, you know, you're saying I won't have to, you know, you're saying I can dodge bullets. No, Neo, I'm saying you won't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be so far ahead of the power curve,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't really, it won't affect you as much as it'll affect people who are downstream, who are pulling their hair out, wondering why this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of like, in a way, I look at it as that's like part of your ministry, is that like you are alleviating stress through understanding, because God is not the author of confusion, and neither are the men that he sends to educate us.
Yep. And the one who built the matrix is the architect, the great architect of the universe that Masons call Lucifer.
Yes.
John, we get that here. Sometimes they muck around the internet and you got to keep rebooting. They keep doing it to us, actually. So it's not just you.
Smack it, baby. Gary, we got probably, what, 5 minutes,
5 minutes
maybe?
left,
Real quick, we want to make sure you get to cover everything you want to cover. We could take longer if you need to. But I wanted to mention the conferences in Atlanta, I think, is that right?
Yep.
In case anybody maybe wanted to buy tickets to that, if any tickets were still available, where could people find out information on that?
Yeah, you could just Google Sacred Word Revelation Prophecy Conference, and it will come up. Yeah, I think there still are some tickets available, and it's in Atlanta on the weekend of, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I think it's like the 25th and the 26th. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the speeches and conference will be on the Saturday and the Sunday. And so that's probably the easiest way to get tickets. I'm also down in Orlando for the Reveal Report, and I understand they're selling tickets. We're going to be doing live shows there, and we'll have some booths up and standing, and that's starting on the 12th and the 13th, Friday and the Saturday, if I got the dates right. And I don't have a connection for the tickets on that, but just Google the Reveal Report Orlando conference, and you'll be able to access that as well.
That's awesome.
Gary, before we let you go, I want to ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
The prominence of your book, people always finding your videos on YouTube, but we don't see you much on social media. Why is Gary Wayne not a social media?
And by the way, we took social media off for Lent. We went on a social media fast, and it was like the greatest thing we ever done.
Great.
I will be getting back on social media. I used to be big on social media up till about 2 or 3 years ago. And it's just been a matter of time. I put so much effort into writing the second book. I just didn't have time to answer all of the emails and that come in and to answer the questions on social media. So I used to be known for being all over social media. So once I get by this first sort of, get the book, into the hands of the publishers, and I'm done with the consulting back and forth on it, then I'll be more on, certainly I'll be starting out with Facebook. I still have a Facebook account. People I do spend a little bit of time on it. I have a group in Facebook. I haven't been in that group often as well. I've got people running it for me. That's Gary Wayne and the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. I've just reopened my Twitter account. I've opened an Instagram account. And I'm looking at some of the other alternatives. Because of time and because of what was going on in the social media world, I closed down just basically Facebook to keep one open until I saw where things were going and with the censorship and everything else. So yeah, it's on my agenda to decide exactly which ones I want to be on. And then I need to be able to spend, if you're going to do social media, I have to be able to devote about 4 hours a day to do it properly.
Yeah, that's right.
And then if I want to do, then I still have to answer the emails and stuff like that. And then if I want to do shows and to write another book, so I will be back. I just haven't been, and I wish I was, because I really love working the social media, because you have so much direct contact, and you really get to test your abilities to encapsulate information in a short piece quickly when you've got people that are calling you all sorts of names and stuff like that, and saying, we don't have to do that, but here's the information.
What are their names? Tell me who they are, Gary. I will find them.
Well, when you get back on social media, when you're back on the horse, so to speak, I hope you don't get too busy to come back and interview us again, especially when your second book comes out.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that. We can't wait to see it.
Yeah. All of our fans are, all of our friends and audience members, they've all been like, when's the second book coming out? When's the second book coming out? Like, when it comes out, I don't know what to tell you. You know what? Okay. This will take we can actually do the same thing like we did last time, where I was like, hey, Gary, tell me about Atlantis. And you're like, that'll have to be its own episode. So maybe that'll have to be its own episode. But I just want to ask you, this is just sort of like a silly question. I was watching a thing this morning on the face of Mars, the face in the Mars photos, and then beside them, there's it has its own almost Giza necropolis of pyramids. You think there's any legitimacy to that, or does that need to be a whole other episode?
Oh, I think there's probably legitimacy to that.
Yeah.
So if one sort of understands that you could translate Genesis 1 in two different ways, then you might understand that the world is a little older than standard Christian dogma that takes the genealogies just back to Adam as opposed to anything before that, and that the world became form and voidless. I won't go through the whole theology of this.
He's very humble, isn't he, John? I've seen him on channels that only had 1,500 subs, and he explains it in a really simple manner. He's brilliant. He's probably the best of this genre. He's probably the best of it.
I did a 3-hour presentation at a conference going through it word by word. But in that destruction, in that gap between Genesis 1:1 and 2, after God created the heavens and the universe, and before the renewal of the earth, that happens, that Psalms 104 talks about when God sends his Holy Spirit, that shows up in Genesis 1:2. You have a collapsing of the firmament in that destruction into the earth that causes the chaos. And the earth would be destroyed down to its foundations. And then you have a renewal of the earth in the 6 days. And so one of the first things that's going to happen is to create life, you have to recreate the firmament. And that's a separation of the waters, right? To create the firmament. And the firmament's called heaven. So if you look at even Exodus 20, when it's talking about when God created heaven and earth in the first 6 days, heaven is defined as the firmament, what's outside the firmament, and the place where God dwells. 3 different meanings. And in Genesis 1, the firmament is called heaven. So it fits with Exodus 20 if you want to sort of look at it from that sort of perspective. But you had to separate these waters that would have collapsed down on the earth in an angelic war that destroyed the world. So if you had the earth that's destroyed in this angelic war, in that gap, sometime before Genesis 1:2, after Genesis 1, then if there was life on Mars, which people speculate that there probably was, and that there might be buildings or architecture there, and that it was part of maybe more than one planet that had life in our solar system. I mean, who knows? And that would have been also destroyed in the Angelic War as well. So I think that's a good possibility. I think we'll be told something completely different as to how life was on Mars by the people who control science and NASA, but I think that's possible.
That is such an awesome answer. Yeah. We might have to get you and Tim together. You and Tim.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
He's got this whole presentation on like Mars fossils. You know, that like, yeah, you guys might have some interesting crossover there.
That's
Gary Wayne,
Mr. Alberino, you're talking about?
Oh, no, Tim Cohen.
Tim Cohen.
He's he wrote a book called The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, but he also has a whole other thing where he talks about the Mars fossils and all that stuff. And anyways, killer answer, Gary. Man, thank you. We've gone way over 3 hours, and you always bring the heat, Gary. And I really
I don't think I've ever had
you.
2 pages of notes.
I'm like in the margins. I'm in the margins with minimal doodles, Gary. That's how you know, like, you know, it's been chock full. Gary Wayne, the author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, friend of the channel, gentleman scholar. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Our motto here on the Goslings is "Go forth and strike down the darkness." So
Gary does
I really
that.
would just like to ask you any last parting words for our audience members that they might use to strike down the darkness in their daily lives.
Yeah. Spread the word.
Spread the word.
Spread the word.
Amen to that, brother.
Hey, if you guys have been enjoying this interview and you'd like to hear the rest of it, including some really down and dirty stuff that we're not allowed to say here on YouTube, head over to patreon.com/the Gosslings. We'd love to have your support there and share exclusive content with you.
That's right. Keep it cool. And remember, these are interviews that strike down the darkness.
They do indeed strike down the darkness.
Chris, India has had plasma rains. It's actually rained blood in India. Okay, guys, I'll do a Skywatch one and finish off with that. I loaded it. Where is it? There it is, the Great Reset.
It's amazing what a little stuff can do.
Possibility of a total worldwide. We appear to be living at a time where the possibility of a total worldwide financial collapse may be looming on the horizon. The value of the dollar cascading every day, bank systems imploding, while leaders call for a digital replacement currency and dream of attaching an eventual social scoring system in order to maintain control over citizens. Is there a new world order emerging? Are we being set up right now for the mark of the beast? Are these questions based on nothing more than delirium and conspiracy? Today's panel is here to explain all of this and more. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Skywatch TV. The audience that's in house today knows what they're in for. Are you guys ready for this? We begin a series with 2 brand new works from Defender Publishing, but before I introduce those to you, let me introduce who's on deck. He's a prolific researcher writer with a master's degree in biblical archaeology, the director of the Psalm 19 Astronomy Project, and the co-host of the popular Prophecy Watchers television program. Please welcome Mr. Mondo Gonzalez. He's the author of countless best-selling books that have been distributed into the hundreds of thousands of copies worldwide, and a dear friend of not only our ministry, but my family personally, Mr. Terry James. He's a Bible teacher with a Master of Divinity degree from Talbot University, retired financial business analyst, and valuable voice in biblical prophecy, Jonathan Brentner. Ladies and gentlemen, two new works from Defender Publishing that have absolutely got the eyes and ears of those who've seen the preview copies. First, New World Order, and we'll bring this up on the screen so you can see it. Worlds in Collision and the Rebirth of Liberty by Terry James and Pete Garcia. And also the brand new work, Cancel This, What Today's Church Can Learn from the Bad Guys of the Bible by Jonathan C. Brentner. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. I want to hit the ground running because we have so much to cover. There's never been a time in my lifetime where at least I, and I don't think I'm alone in this, as we've talked with many of the people here in studio, have seen more question mark about the survivability of banks right now. There's people in media talking about a potential run on banks. Meanwhile, you have government officials emerging to try to soothe those concerns with promises that maybe somehow they'll be able to print more money and back these Federal Reserves to salvage these banks. And you do see the threat of imminent World War III developing with China and Russia. You see the uncertainty about what's happening in Ukraine. Trying to get a straight story of what's actually happening there is a disaster with the media that we have here in the country. So many nerves, so many people on edge, so many people holding on to their money, not buying things, pulling it out of banks, trying to find precious gold and silver as a way to maybe provide currency during a time where maybe cash money disappears. I've never seen so much uncertainty, at least in my lifetime. There's this idea that there could be those behind all of what we're seeing being orchestrated today that are, if not doing this by design, certainly planning to
Okay, this is 13 days old, guys.
capitalize on it. Let no good crisis go to waste. That is where I certainly stand. I believe if this is not a malevolent plot, a malevolent agenda, there are certainly those greedy enough to take advantage of. They don't care about the United States or Western civilization or these countries that are literally losing young teenage boys to a war that they don't understand. There's places in Ukraine where the average lifespan of a young boy is 4 hours. They're being handed rifles. It's a disaster. It puts a lump in my throat. Meanwhile, you have the Americanized Western media just spinning propaganda at the behest of the echo chamber. My question to you, Mondo, with so many people talking about the Great Reset, the idea that all of these events are being manufactured, those taking advantage, as the person who wrote the foreword to New World Order, Worlds in Collision and the Rebirth of Liberty, I can't think of a more appropriate title right now. What is your assessment of this book, and where do you think we are as a nation in terms of the development of this new order? When a person hears the words New World Order, who are we really actually talking about?
Yeah, when Pete and Terry and I have been talking about this book and even developing the forward, we wanted to think about evangelism, not just for those on the outside, to teach them about what's happening in our world, but also to equip those within the church that maybe they're part of a church that doesn't talk about prophecy, and to say, hey, look, when we talk about the New World Order, oftentimes people just get thrown the conspiracy theorist label. And we want to embrace that full-heartedly to say, absolutely, because if you believe the Bible, you start in Genesis 3:1, where you have this master conspirator. And so when we come and we think about his works throughout the entire scope of human history, biblical history, you have him along with his lieutenants working behind the scenes to do exactly this, to create some system that he knows he's going to get at the end. And so when we think about the New World Order, we're watching these things unfold. Most of the time out there, I think with the average person, they hear the word New World Order and they don't really know what that means. But this particular book is great because it's going to say, hey, look, let's start with the Bible and see what's been there the whole time, but also then to take it and consider what's been happening in our culture and our world, that it is becoming implemented right now.
Right. And who do you think, not to name specific names, but who do you think is actually behind when somebody hears the phrase, the New World Order? Do you think this is bankers? Are these politicians? Is it a blend of all?
Great question.
Would basically look at the whole planet as their own oyster. This is their sandbox. We're the hive. This is something they can simply play in and use us to their behest to enrich themselves. Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, I think that's all of that, because if you look at, like, you think 1 John 4, where it talks about the Antichrist, and even in the first century, the spirit of the Antichrist is already here. And so I think in every single age, Satan has always been looking to accomplish a new world order through an empire. And so now, when we come to really the last century, let's say the 20th century, you have the Bilderbergers, you have Rockefellers, you have all these people that have been working behind the scenes. And now we're in the 21st century where now we have technology. You look at all Elon Musk, you look at all these influencers that are, so it's all of that and above. And plus, I think now when you think of the history, which is in the book, is great, talking about how it's infiltrated into our academic institutions, into the government and the shadow government.
Oh, for sure.
It is all there.
Yeah, some really good advice might be at times just turn your TV off. Yeah, just turn it off. Yeah. You know, your perspective changes when you just tune all the noise out. Terry, obviously with a title like this book is about a new world order and a world that is yet to be fully formed. Now, before we delve into that coming world order, let's talk about the so-called world order of the past and present, leading to where we are today. Let's look at the stages of development since man's creation. I know that's something you're very, very up on.
I think we start thinking about world orders. We go all the way back to the beginning. Who created the perfect world order? Well, it was the Lord God of heaven. It was Jesus Christ, it says in John 1:1. Jesus created the perfect order. Well, of course, we know what happened with the fall and the garden and so forth, and the other world order began, and it was satanic origin. Then God had to deal with that and end it and begin again. And then not long after the beginning again, of course, the people, again, being of fallen minds and hearts now, again, wanted to push away from God because that is the father of lies. They are their father, the devil. And so they again wanted to push away from God. And then we come to, I think it's Genesis 19 and talk about the Tower of Babel and so forth and Nimrod and how they wanted to build a tower to heaven. And actually that all that represents is to usurp the throne of God as Satan and Lucifer did in the first place, as we see in Isaiah 14. And so that was the next world order. Well, what happened? Well, God looked down and he said, we're going to have to go down and do something about this because, you know, whatever they want to do, they're made in our image and they can do whatever they want to do. Hey, Barry, good to see you. That's still true. Not perfect in the way God is, but built in his image. And they were building that tower and no telling what kind of technologies I think they had then. And so he came down and he had to destroy the tower. He had to literally break the continents apart to move them around the world. That's another world order that he destroyed. And well, what do we come back to now? The same type of thing, the same promise that Satan gives to fallen mankind. You can be as God. That's what he's given to the New World Order crowd, the elite, the globalist elite. The question was asked a while ago about who are these people?
Right.
They are the people of Ephesians 6:12, the powers and principalities against which we struggle. Now, there's two sets, I believe. One are the human minions, and the other, of course, are the demonic or the fallen angelic minions. And they want to do the same thing. They want to, again, build this tower that will usurp the throne of God. And that's why we see so much against this country right now, I think. Even the clandestine services of this nation have joined with all the globalists and want to tear this country down. And that's because it's the apex nation of all history from the standpoint of technology development and other things. And so America is actually blocking the way. And this is what the New World Order book is all about, and trying to talk about why things have been so crazy. It's because it's a full-born satanic attack.
A full-blown satanic attack. Now, Tom, as the publisher of this new book, what was it about the manuscript that intrigued you? Why did you feel this was timely?
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that our latest virtual conference is called One World Rising.
Right.
But this is really true. And you remember when we, did that program in which we were advertising the virtual conference.
Yeah.
You said, Tom, why are we calling this One World Rising? And I said, it's because one world is rising.
Yeah.
But this book by Terry and Pete Garcia, I mean, it's just so very timely. And like you say, it's the way they approach explaining what's going on. You mentioned a moment ago the Tower of Babel. Derek Gilbert's the one who says that, out of the World Economic Forum and all the rest of them, what they're trying to do is build back Babel instead of build back better, right? But the history in there is rich, as well as the information about what it explains to us what we see. So many people, they can look at it, they can see it, they hear guys like Klaus Schwab and all them talking about this fourth industrial revolution, and Jonathan even talking about transhumanism, which I know is something you've written about before, and how they're going to use these new artificial intelligence and tools, but to literally form a new form of man. So it is Bill back Babel. And furthermore, it's the days of Noah, Matthew 24:37. Right. Yeah. There's just so many things in here that we're answering questions so plainly and clearly that the average person will be able to get into this book and say, okay, it's all starting to make sense now. Yeah. Why the economy is in the shape that it's in, why banks are failing, why they're talking about a digital currency. Maybe we'll get into that too on this program, the stuff that's advancing so very quickly. So it was timely. It needed to be published as soon as possible, and I'm glad we were able to do it. We need persuasive arguments. We need bodies of work that are persuasive. I'm not going to get into some of the individuals I've been friends with for a couple of decades who's
What does a dog do then?
They're so incapable of seeing that we're not living out through normal blue versus red political times. Terry, why do you think this book is so timely?
It's because people need to know what's going on. They don't realize what's going on. They Americans in particular are so busy with their daily lives or with their games, with raising families, whatever. That's why we have so much trouble teaching prophecy in the churches today, because people just prefer not to hear that. You know, they put their hands over their ears and say la la la. But we need a book that would discuss why things are as they are, and it's because of this New World Order crowd that is at work to, first of all, as I said, bring America down, because America is the apex nation, and it's really a nation. If you look at a nation, of course, God is.
What a shame, Diane.
Restraining, but America is the nation that is holding things out, and you can see the satanic attack every day. You can see it, and so we needed a book that that would show why the craziness of the time. People are always saying times sure are crazy.
Yeah,
and that's why.
Mondo, in chapter 5, you deal with something important here: the almost certainty of a future global war, and you guys address that. What are the reasons, in your view, for this reality, and how does it fit in with Bible prophecy?
There's a couple things I think with the nature of humanity. We all of us, we like stability. We like calmness. We like doing our thing, you know. And when you have chaos, that works well for bringing in things that people normally wouldn't accept under those conditions. And so you have two things. You have the way in which the cabal, or however you want to say that, the people behind the scenes, they understand human nature to that degree. So one of the best ways to do it is through war, through World War. Second thing, when you see what Jesus said in Matthew 24, we know the passage, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. The end is not yet, but it's on its way. And then you come to Revelation chapter 6, as it relates to the second horseman. You immediately, right at the beginning, you have peace taken from the earth. So through all those things, I think the enemy loves to cause that chaos, and then people will long. I mean, they'll long to come back. For example, we look at the last couple of years of all the different chaos, and how many people say, when are we going to get back to what? To normal. When are we going to get back to normal? People want normal. And so when you have chaos and you have war, people will naturally say, well, how do we get back to that? Especially if you have families and others dying. What liberties do I need to give up? What technology do I need to embrace in order to have my normalcy again, at least in some way? That's what I think you have. Human nature as well as scripture telling us that's going to be.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure that you know how you can get copies of these incredible works in the brand new Final Agenda Super Collection. And stay with us to the end of today's program when we give you just a sneak preview of the Coming Judgments DVD featuring Jonathan Brentner, Pete Garcia, and Terry James. Watch this.
With a global one-world cabal rising, it is time for the remnant of God to prepare spiritually for what is coming like never before. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Final Agenda Super Collection. When you order the Final Agenda Super Collection from the SkywatchTVStore.com, you'll receive a brand new book by Terry James and Pete Garcia, New World Order. Worlds in Collision and the Rebirth of Liberty. This groundbreaking new book puts on full display all the telltale signs of the impending collapse of Western civilization that are all around us. From the out-of-control national debt, corruption at every level of government, cities suffering from rampant crime and lawlessness, the intentional sabotage of Western education systems, and the growing potential for nuclear world war. New World Order also navigates the globalist agenda to merge ancient paganism into modern technology, to excise God's created order via the Great Reset, and explains how individuals can and need to confront all these issues head on. But that's not all. When you order the Final Agenda Super Collection, you'll also receive Jonathan Bretner's brand new book, Cancel This. This incredible new work from acclaimed author Jonathan Bretner takes a zoomed-in look at precisely what we...
Good night, Diane. I'm out after this as well. I'm going to jump ahead from these ads. Okay.
With Mondo having just discussed the normalcy that everybody longs for during turbulent times, I want to get to Terry and ask a really quick question. Chapter 8 of your book is referred to as the illusion of modernity. And it talks about, you know, this thing called the normalcy bias, while it's also referring to different technological influence, the New World Order's ability to control the masses, both in mass and individual basis, and how all of this works out. And it approaches the question from such a sense that it also makes the reader really question, is it true the societal collapse is actually possible? Do we even see it coming?
Well, technology is definitely at the heart of normalcy bias and so forth. The people, American people, now I talk in terms of America mostly, because America, again, is the apex nation. And I think the greatest attack is coming against this country to bring it down, and so that it will be, you know, compatible with the New World Order plans. And American people have been led to believe, because of the luxurious life we've lived through technologies, that nothing can ever change. So they have an expectation of nothing bad is going to happen. So normalcy bias is they want to get back quickly as possible to normalcy. That's what we saw with this COVID thing, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get back as quickly as possible. The normalcy bias was to get back. Let's take off the mask. Let's get back to business.
Chris, whichever one feels right, mate, listen to the Holy Spirit. He'll tell you which one.
And but unfortunately, the government, some of the government people don't seem to want that. And that's because, again, they want to bring the nation into compliance with the New World Order wishes. And this Tower of Babel building that Tom was talking about. I think that we're going to see more of this, more attacks in that regard against to change people's minds, I guess you would say, to make them more compliant.
Mondo, before we run out of time, in the book, we hear incessantly about something called the Great Reset. I mentioned it at the onset of this program. So many who study Bible prophecy, particularly, of course, from the pre-trib, pre-millennial view, believe that the Great Reset is a huge part of how this New World Order plans to achieve their global order.
Well, it's interesting. If you go back even 5-10 years ago, most people, even in the prophecy world, didn't really know who Klaus Schwab was. I know I'm a prophecy guy for a long time. I never heard of him. But now he's become kind of the main a villain. Let's just be honest. You know, we love a good villain in that regard. But one of the things that they're very clear about is the need to reset everything, because they recognize that chaos is what brings it. And so the idea of a reset is wanting to see the dollar crash, wanting to see society be crumbled, wanted to see society become more dependent on the government. So in order to do that, you got to have, again, you got to have disorder. So what we've seen over the past few years has obviously been a little bit surprising to me, even in the church. I was pastoring at the time of COVID and other things, and I was surprised that even in the church, of the ways in which people were willing, Americans, I'm thinking, we're Americans, we would never want to give up our liberties and freedom. But yet you take something like health, which is important that people want. And so to see the reset come in, this was kind of a practice run for them in order to create a situation where Hebrews 2:14, the devil operates in fear. And so by promoting that, they're going to continue to use whatever mechanism they can to promote fear. And then, of course, hey, guys, we have the answer and we can bring it all back, as we've been discussing the normal. The Great Reset is that mechanism in all of the areas.
Well, Mondo, it's interesting that you say that, you know, you didn't know who Klaus Schwab
was, until recent times. I think that's probably true for an awful lot of people. But being the head of the World Economic Forum does carry a lot of clout to the United Nations, to other nations, industrialized or not. And if you go and read his scheme, I mean, what he's already written and said himself about the so-called fourth industrial revolution, I mean, it literally feels torn out of the pages of the Bible, out of prophecy. Again, everything from transhumanism. I mean, he actually imagines that we are going to integrate humanity with artificial intelligence and technology, brain implants and all that. And he's talking about within a decade, just ASAP, right away, right? And we're going to partly do that by tinkering with our biology, rewriting what it means to even be human, maybe even transgenic sciences where we're blended with other animals. It's a nightmare scenario, but I think the world is going to know who Klaus Schwab is in the very near future.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, the book, New World Order, Worlds in Collision and the Rebirth of Liberty, along with Cancel This, What Today's Church Can Learn from the Bad Guys of the Bible. What do you think about today's panel? I think we're going to have to do this again next week, so join us again as our guests return to talk about whether or not the rapture of the church actually helps or hinders the coming of the New World Order. It's not going to
Okay, that should be interesting, guys. They're going to do the rapture. I wonder what their stance is.
be one you're going to want to miss.
Okay, guys, I'm going. I've been going for 3 hours. See you tomorrow. And John, if you're still listening, I might do your Tim Cohen one tomorrow. If you do that, I might stream that straight away. See you tomorrow, guys. God bless.